The FPS genre has been around for a long time. Like, a really, really long time. You could go to your local care home and see a group of old people reminiscing about the good old days playing Doom on Mabel's life support system. It was worth every second. Everyone knows the original Doom. Even if you haven't played it, you've most definitely heard of it.
You guys want to play Doom?
Or seen footage of someone playing it on a video reminiscing about the good old days. Oh wait, that's kind of this video. Shit. Now, everyone talks about Doom when it comes to the discussion about what popularized the FPS genre as a whole, and yeah, I guess it did, but hardly anyone ever talks about the game that came before it, Wolfenstein 3D. Doom probably wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for this game, and I want you to remember that. Just keep it in mind. Created by the same developers, id Software, Wolfenstein 3D was basically the first FPS game to ever exist. Technically, I mean, come on, can we really say this is an FPS game?
It has a little something for everyone.
You play as William Joseph Blazkowicz, and you kill Nazis. That's it. Listen fellas, it was a simpler time back then. That's all you really needed to know. The game has not aged well at all, especially compared to the original Doom. Every single room in the game looks the exact same due to the limitations, and I don't know, it was definitely a product of its time. id Software learnt from Wolfenstein 3D and expanded on everything with Doom. But you need to remember, Wolfenstein is the game that mentored it. We gotta give it the respect it deserves. Time passed and every single game coming out wanted to be like Doom, gradually evolving more and more, adding unique mechanics as technology improved. Then consoles became mainstream and we got Halo, the first FPS game to truly revolutionize playing games on console with a controller. Before this, the majority of FPS games were played on PCs with a mouse and keyboard. I mean, you had shit like GoldenEye, but playing that shit on this abomination wasn't exactly ideal.
What the hell is this?
Halo refined the first-person shooting gameplay with a controller. It set a standard for how the controls will be laid out for all console shooters in the future. Not only that, but it was an awesome game in general, expanding on the genre completely, each mission being a sandbox you could fuck around in, solving your silly problems in different ways against the Covenant.
Master Chief? You mind telling me what you're doing?
There was only a 2-weapon limit in the game, but that was down to the fact the controller doesn't have a million fucking number keys to select weapons, so it made sense. Regardless, it was good, and it was a huge success. Halo became the new Doom. Every game wanted to be it, but the difference is, no other shooter could come close to Halo, and we got so much fucking garbage within the genre. You guys remember Haze? I think it's called Haze. The cover's on the screen right now, and I hope I got the name right. It better be called fucking Haze. Then Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out, and it was all downhill from there. The FPS genre completely stagnated because of this game. Not because it was a bad game, but because every greedy, shitty company saw the success of Call of Duty, and they wanted to make the next COD cash cow themselves. Almost every first-person shooter that came out after that wanted to be Call of Duty, a linear restrictive first-person shooter. This wouldn't have been an issue if there weren't so fucking many of them. Even Halo wanted to become Call of Duty. You couldn't fucking escape it. Even Doom. Fucking Doom was taking notes from Call of Duty. Hot off the heels of the shit show that was Rage, what was shown of the 4th Doom game, it looked like it was going to be some sort of military post-apocalyptic shooter. Yeah, you'd still be fighting demons, but it was obvious the Call of Duty influence was there, and it just looked fucking shit. It just wasn't the Doom everyone remembered anymore. Thankfully, what we ended up getting was Doom 2016. Yeah, that's right, these two are the same game. Thank fucking god they made the changes though. Doom 2016 was an amazing game that started an entire new era of first-person shooters, a route I'm personally super glad it took, bringing back the resurgence of movement-based shooters. But the thing is, it wasn't Doom that technically started this. No, there was another game that came out just 2 years before Doom 2016. A game that I feel like inspired id Software to take the different direction they took for Doom, and that game was Wolfenstein The New Order. feels like time has completely repeated itself. Remember how I said earlier how Doom would not have existed if it wasn't for Wolfenstein 3D? Well, it seems like the exact same thing happened here, with Doom taking all the credit once again. And honestly, I do not see enough people talking about Wolfenstein The New Order. If you want to know if the game's worth playing, yes, it's definitely worth playing. I'll just let you know now. Just like with Doom 2016, Wolfenstein The New Order is a reboot of the series, and an excellent one at that. If I were to summarize it in a very simple way, it's just like a modern Wolfenstein 3D. You play as William Joseph Blazkowicz again, and you kill Nazis. Except this time, the game tackles depressing themes and settings relating to the history of the Nazis. It humanizes all of the characters, making them all extremely likable, except for the Nazis of course, but I mean that's a given. And it takes place in an alternative reality where the Nazis actually won the war, which is an incredibly interesting setting and concept. We will get to all that character story theming shit later. What we need to talk about is the most important part of any first-person shooter, the gameplay. Well, technically the gunplay. And all I need to do is play this clip of me shooting the assault rifle. Yeah, it is fucking incredible in this game. Every single weapon in Wolfenstein The New Order is incredibly punchy and visceral. And I mean every single gun. There is absolutely zero stinkers in this brilliant roster. And if you ever want to make things even more intense, you can dual wield almost any weapon. It slows you down a lot while doing it, but you're basically a tank, so who cares? Well, you're a glass tank.
Take this shit no more, man.
You will have the most fun running and sliding around like a complete madman, shooting Nazis left and right. You know, that good-ass movement shooter gameplay that we've all come to know and love today. It doesn't feel entirely fleshed out in Wolfenstein though. Because it came out before Doom, it was setting the groundwork. There's a lot of growing pains here and there. The game has a weird leaning mechanic, and some combat encounters promote you to take a slower cover-based approach, and these are definitely the weakest sections of the game. They also feel incredibly unbalanced for some reason. The leaning mechanic was probably made specifically for the stealth sections of the game, which still aren't entirely fleshed out, but thankfully they're completely optional. Every now and then, whenever you enter an arena, you will see this appear. This is basically the game telling you, they don't know you're here. Slap that silencer on and slink about in the shadows. Like I said, stealth is completely optional, and while I personally don't like stealth in most games, I do actually enjoy doing it in Wolfenstein, which is odd considering how incredibly fun the run and gun gameplay is. That sign you saw earlier are the officers, and they're scattered around the arenas, and if they spot you, they call in reinforcements, and basically every Nazi within the area will know your exact location. Shit can hit the fan incredibly quickly. There really isn't much room for error with the stealth, making it incredibly satisfying if you manage to slink by an entire arena, but it also makes you kind of sad because you didn't get to shoot everyone within the arena, so I don't know, man. If we're going back to the comparisons though, the composer for Doom, Mick Gordon, actually composed for Wolfenstein The New Order before he became so well known with his tracks from Doom 2016. Just like with Wolfenstein The New Order though, it was just kind of swept under the rug and nobody really acknowledged it, which is a shame because the soundtrack for this game is absolutely banging. It's nowhere near as iconic as Doom's soundtrack, but the man really nailed the tone of Wolfenstein The New Order. So many tracks have this somber, depressing tone to them, which is fitting because it's a world where the Nazis won. It's hard to have any hope, but in some of the tracks an instrument would kick in, hyping up the player, giving them some form of a feeling that they have a fighting chance against the odds. Sadly, they messed up the mixing in the game. In certain sections you can barely hear the music playing. Like when I played recently to get this footage, I never noticed the music most of the time during fights. I feel like if the mixing was better, this shit would be on the same level as the Doom soundtrack. Like I mentioned earlier, the Nazis have won World War II in this universe, and Wolfenstein The New Order is basically taking place in an alternative reality of our own. It's basically a what if, and it's done in a very tasteful way, unlike the sequel, but we won't talk about that yet. Leave a like if you want to see a video on the other Wolfenstein games. This is now your chance to press that like button and maybe subscribe if you're feeling a bit generous. You're a Jewish American in a world that despises you. The Nazis were horrible people and the developers knew that, but they also acknowledged the fact that the Nazis were also smarter and way more well equipped a lot of the time. Within the first mission you end up ditching your weapons for the Nazi weaponry because unfortunately it's just superior and far more powerful. phenomenal. Not to mention, for the time period it takes place in, the 1960s, technology has advanced a lot, but definitely not in a good way. Everything has this grey industrial mechanic tone to it, with the occasional disgustingly contrasted red colour scattered around. They did an incredible job at creating a world nobody in their right mind would want to live in. There are missions within the New Order that tackle horrific events caused by the Nazis that happened during World War II, but we'll get to them later. Wolfenstein The New Order is an incredible game, and I don't think enough people give it the credit it deserves. I don't think Doom 4 would have made the drastic change it did if it wasn't for this game. If you haven't already and you're having thoughts about checking the game out now, well, I'm just gonna say now's the best time. You should play it, because I'm going to be spoiling the entire game from here on. If you don't care about that though, or you've already played it yourself, maybe make a nice coffee, sit back, and have fun listening to me talk about Wolfenstein The New Order. The game begins on the Baltic Sea near the coast of Germany in 1946. You and a few allies are storming a compound owned and run by Wilhelm Strauss, a Nazi researcher who had absolutely zero humanity, creating and researching without any remorse, creating death machines for the Nazis. He's referred to by the allies as Death's Head, and the only way any of you can see any chance of winning this war is by assassinating this man at his compound. You play as William Joseph Blazkowicz, just like in the previous Wolfenstein games, but I'm gonna be referring to him as BJ from now on because it's just way easier. You're in a plane with a Scottish pilot named Fergus, whose first interaction is him telling you to keep a lookout because he needs to take a piss.
You keep a lookout. I need to go to the piss.
This character is a fan favorite, by the way. He has to hold that piss because shit hits the fan and one of your allied planes is shot out of the sky. This is a war. There is no time for pleasures such as being able to urinate. The allied plane shot down unfortunately crashes near the plane you and Fergus are in, causing pretty bad damage to the engines. Since Fergus is the pilot, it's your job to go and fix the damages caused to your plane. And you gotta do it fast or you'll end up like your mates. Now during this, there's something that happens that's really minor but I absolutely adore. During little in-game cutscenes, you aren't invincible, and the game shows you this in a very dynamic way with these flames blasting in your face. As you're fixing the shit in the plane, you can see your health slowly draining because of the flames. It's good shit, and I really like it. It makes me feel immersed. Sadly, the engines are a bit of a lost cause, so to keep the plane up, you gotta get rid of some weight. Now, sadly, you can't just throw yourself out because I can imagine BJ is the heaviest fucking thing on the plane. Instead, you have to get rid of some valuable supplies in the cargo area. Supplies that could have possibly helped you a lot once you had landed. Once you're done with that, it's time to head back to the cockpit. You've done all you can. Shit, there are way too many Nazi planes in the sky taking everyone out, so you have to take matters into your own hand and step into the plane's turret. Oh yeah, take that, you fucking Nazi bastard. Oh fuck.
You're still breathing, you chummy bastard.
Somehow you survive this, and Fergus kindly hands you a little med pack for all the fucking shrapnel and plane parts lodged into your body. The plane you're in is basically fucked right now, so the best thing to do is to hop onto another plane. It's an absolutely insane idea, but hey, Fergus managed it, so obviously I should be okay making that jump. Oh wait, fuck! It's just a scratch. Time to make the leap of faith. You just barely make it into the plane. But I mean, we've had a lot of close calls in the last few minutes. This isn't the first time. We're used to it. The most noticeable thing about the plane full of your allies is how hopeless it feels. All the soldiers look distraught, like they've given up, knowing they're fighting a losing war. In the cockpit, you're introduced to a cowering young soldier right next to Fergus piloting the plane. This is Wyatt. He is having a panic attack. You have to slap some sense into this poor kid. It's obvious how desperate we've become in this fight against the Nazis, recruiting inexperienced young adults, sending them to their deaths. It's a depressing, hopeless tone, and I love how the game shows all of this without any stupid wisecracks or out-of-place one-liners. You can tell it wasn't influenced by a certain company in their films, unlike the sequel. At this point, it's impossible to land the plane anywhere near Death's Head's compound. Their firepower and defenses are way too powerful, so the only thing Fergus can do with the plane is crash land it into the ocean near the shore of the compound.
It's the break of dawn. July 16, 1946. Everything Everything has gone to shit. The Nazi war machine is advancing at an astonishing rate. And we can't catch up. Our tactics are failing. Outclassed and outgunned. No one knows why. People are getting desperate. Not me. I'm here to see an old friend and settle a score. Turn this thing around.
Metallic monstrosities are patrolling the shoreline of the compound, and you are unfortunate enough to be grabbed by one. Thankfully though, you're thrown into a crashed plane, which conveniently has a phone in it, allowing you to communicate with Fergus and the others, who actually managed to land onto the shore. Unfortunately right next to one of those metallic beasts. Fergus points out a crash-landed plane in the water with a huge turret still intact, and he suggests possibly swimming to it, to take out the monster. Once you manage to swim out of the plane into the shoreline, you are met with so many dead ally soldiers who didn't even manage to make it to the shore. They didn't even stand a chance. You're also met with this giant metallic foot stomping down just in front of you. It's absolutely huge. You cannot imagine what the fuck that thing could even be. But it's very obvious that the Nazis unfortunately have the upper hand here. You make it into the turret and murder the stupid metal dogs. We finally regroup with Fergus and the others, and we are handed our first weapon. Let's fucking go. And we instantly replace it with the Nazi assault rifle, because sadly the Nazis have the upper hand here, like I said earlier, with not only their technological monstrosities and armor, but their weaponry too. We work our way through the trenches, mowing down Nazis left and right until we make it inside and hop on one of the Nazi turrets. And we see what the big metal foot was earlier. Holy shit! I mean, we have this super powerful turret, so let's try and destroy that thing.
Get the fuck out my pole! Get your ass off this motherfucking pole!
Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's just keep moving through the compound. I can't imagine anything but oh my fucking god. Yep, you shit, this is the end. Oh fuck. Oh, thank you, Private Wyatt. We regroup with the squad again right at the bottom of the main compound. The only way up is to scale the walls. It's basically a death sentence, but it's the only way into the compound. Nazis are peeking out of windows left and right trying to stop you, but haha, I have those epic gamer reflexes. They can't fucking stop me. Holy fucking shit, that is a giant plane. We get split up again within the compound, so yeah, we're alone again. Obviously the smartest thing to do right now is to slink around the shadows, taking out the Nazis one by one, not making a sound. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. Let's run and gun. Shit happens, Nazis die, and we end up regrouping again with Fergus, Wyatt, and the others. I just want to point out too that I really like this British guy who's a part of the group.
Yeah, what, you ain't got churches in England? You ain't got no priests there?
Yeah. Well, the Nazis sort of bombing them at the moment, so it's a bit of a problem.
We all jump across this huge gap, but because BJ is built like a fucking tank, the floor collapses in on itself, sending you all tumbling down into holy fucking shit, what the hell is this place? It's like some sort of experimentation room for Death's Head. There are frail, disgusting corpses held up by the skin on their backs on tables. Yeah, why, I fucking agree. Obviously we need to get out of here, but something is triggered causing the incinerators to activate. Fergus finds a way out and we just barely make it through, but the room we get into is another strange room. There are like these industrial coffins lodged into the floors. I wonder what could be in them. Holy fucking shit. Some sort of bloody mechanical abomination from the looks of it. We obviously have to put this hulking monstrosity down, and as it goes down and explodes, all that's left is flesh. Was this a human being? A human being that was experimented on to become some sort of super soldier? Who knows at this point? It's fucking horrifying and I want to get out of here. And oh, okay, that's Death's Head. Oh, brilliant. Now the walls are closing and okay, I'm passing out. We wake up staring into the soulless husk that is one of those super soldiers we fought earlier. It handcuffs us, restricting any movement and adjusting our sight to see the exact same thing as happened to the others. We are absolutely fucked. I don't think there's any way out of this one, lads. Despite him being a frail, balding old man, our first interaction with Death's Head has him standing over us, giving him this imposing feeling. Not to mention all the shit we've seen, this man is obviously a monster. He goes over to Fergus and Wyatt and opens up a little suitcase with a knife in it. He points both of them out, oh, and the guy with the eye patch, but he says he's broken and has no interest in him. Poor fella. Death's Head gives us a choice here. He tells us to choose who he will kill. between Wyatt or Fergus, and it's an incredibly hard choice to make. We've known Fergus the longest. He's been there since the beginning. He's also shown he's an incredibly capable soldier. Not only that, but an incredibly capable pilot too. And he's fucking Scottish. Then there's Wyatt. He's a young soldier who was probably drafted into a losing war unwillingly. He has his whole life ahead of him, and you've been there to calm him down and mentor him where need be. He also saved your life earlier. Depending on who you choose for this outcome can change certain things in the future of the game. Not only does it change who's with you throughout the rest of the game,
Don't fuck this up, you magnificent.
but it also changes small things like how you open shit up. Fergus teaches you hot wiring and Wyatt teaches you lockpicking. There are also unique NPCs later depending on who you choose. So much care and attention was put into the narrative of this game. It's one thing Wolfenstein will always hold over Doom. Sadly, I chose Wyatt to die here because my stream chat told me to. So this is all your faults, not mine. After choosing Wyatt's fate, all we're left with is a slow zoom in on BJ's face, with Wyatt screaming as machinery does unimaginable things to him. No matter who I choose, this part never fails to make me feel incredibly guilty. After murdering Wyatt, Death's Head leaves, turning the incinerator on, also telling one of the super soldiers to stay, to make sure we die. I hate to give the guy credit, but he's a fucking competent villain. Fergus, thankfully, is not taking any of this shit and has a plan, throwing us a pipe as he distracts the super soldier, making him turn his back to hold him down, allowing us to sneak up and lodge that bad boy into its back. We smash the nozzles for the incinerator to hopefully give us some time to think of an escape plan, and we find out the only way out is a window. Fergus teaches us hot wiring here to open up the shutters, and we jump out just before the place goes up in flames. The damage behind us causes a few bits of shrapnel to hit BJ in the back of the head, knocking him out, falling to what only you can imagine is his watery grave. This is how the game opens. Not with bombastic music blasting in our ears, no, instead with this somber music showing BJ floating in the water. It feels so incredibly hopeless, and I absolutely love it. Despite playing as a human brick wall, you know, someone who could be considered a walking powerhouse, you still feel vulnerable. Enemies still feel incredibly dangerous and threatening. The odds always feel stacked against you. It's a feeling you never get in Doom 2016. The demons are just kinda brain dead and you get away with anything. But Doom Eternal is a lot like The New Order. One wrong step and you're fucking dead. But if you play strategically with the run and gun gameplay, the game rewards you for that. And that's when you feel like a powerhouse. BJ is luckily found floating in the ocean and is taken into care. He's in a comatose state, he can't move or speak, but he's still conscious. He stays in the same corner watching the world change around him. BJ even takes a liking to the nurse looking after him called Anya. Until one day, where a group of Nazis come in. I'm not sure why they come in, it's probably some payment shit, but they start killing the sick people left and right with absolutely zero remorse. The Nazi even kills the workers for just trying to restrain him from murdering. During this, you're able to pick up the butter knife on the table, and after killing almost everybody in the room, the Nazi finally gets to you.
Nazi scum.
Standing there, it hits you how long you've gone without moving. BJ collapses to the floor, but he's a strong fella and he doesn't let that bother him. He picks up the closest weapon he can find with one objective. He needs to find Anya. She was taken away during that rampage. You find out the place is completely destroyed. The Nazis did not take any time to demolish it. Every now and then while moving around, your vision goes blurry too, but it doesn't impact the gameplay, thankfully. BJ is too strong to let a coma slow him down. The first thing you'll probably notice during this mission is the striking difference of the weaponry. It seems far more advanced than it was during your time at Death's Head's compound. I mean, you don't really have time to think about it considering the fact you're busy using them to defend yourself. This is also one of the only places in the entire game, aside from one tiny section later, where you get the double barrel shotgun. I have no idea why this is or why this decision was made, because it's a beautiful shotgun that I want to use through the entire game. I guess we get a better one later. I can't really complain. We find Anya knocked out by a car in the courtyard, and BJ puts her into the car and gets the fuck out of there with her. But in this state, he is definitely not fit to be driving right now. But what else can he really do? Whilst driving, he can't stay awake though and passes out. He's woken up by gunfire. A random Nazi stood in the middle of the road waiting for them. Not only does it wake BJ up, but it wakes Anya up too, allowing her to grab the wheel as BJ handles the Nazi. Anya drives them both back home to her parents, and as BJ is getting out of the car, he hears something in the boot. Slinky fucking bastard. Within Anya's home, we get a nice little info dump. We learn that BJ has been in a coma for 14 years. Shocked by this info, BJ asks if there's any way for him to contact his allies, but that's when he's hit with the news. The Nazis have won the war. They won from a horrific event where they nuked the entirety of New York City, causing them to surrender to the Nazis. It truly was a losing war we were fighting earlier. Obviously, with cases like this, there must be some sort of resistance, right? But BJ is just told that the only known resistance was captured ages ago, and the only person who could know where the resistance members could have been taken to is the slinky bastard from earlier, who is conveniently downstairs, ready to be tortured for that information. Anyway, let's get the stuff ready to fucking get that info out of— oh god fucking damn it, get the fuck off me! We get the information out of this Nazi twat. He tells us that the resistance are being held prisoner in one of the highest security prisons in Berlin. So I guess it's time to get there. BJ gets his iconic jacket on and we make our move. Before we get back to the run and gun gameplay, we actually get this little in-between section of Anya and BJ traveling to Berlin on a train. On his way back from getting coffee for them both, we are introduced to another antagonist. An antagonist who could be considered the main antagonist for this game, as she has far more of a presence than Death's Head. I guess he's far too busy with his fucking weird-ass horrific experiments.
I think this guy's a lost cause.
On our way back, she tells us to sit down at the table with her. We can't exactly say no considering the huge fucking mechanized dickhead preventing us from leaving, so we have to oblige. The whole time we're sat there, she is asking us to choose different images to describe feelings, and there is this thick layer of tension surrounding the scene. It feels like she knows exactly who we are, and she just wants to fuck with us.
We do a little trolling.
Even now, I cannot tell if she knows who we are, and I feel really fucking uneasy during this scene every time. Conveniently enough, she places her golden Luger, which she earned from the battle pass, next to the cards. And the developers knew we would notice this shit, giving us the option to pick up the gun and attempt to kill her. There isn't much point because you get murdered almost instantly, but it's a cool little detail to have included. At the end of it all, she points her gun at us. Shit, I think she does know who we are. But then she just laughs it off. It's as if she is drunk with power. She knows she can just completely fuck with us, and there is absolutely nothing we can do. She's like a Nazi officer or some shit, the fucking bitch. We get back to Anya, where we get possibly one of the most uncomfortable scenes in the entire game.
You know there's just one bed.
Yes.
Are you comfortable sharing?
Now we're in Berlin, and it's time to break the resistance fighters out of prison. At this point, we haven't actually seen the world overrun by the Nazis, but we do now with this shot of Berlin. It's become this horrific industrial hellhole. Everything is so grey and drab. It's truly a world no one would want to ever live in. The art team at Machine Games did an incredible job with this. We have to make our way down to a prison transport bus, and on the way down there, we acquire this little gadget called the laser cutter. It's actually a really cool little gizmo, allowing us to cut any shape into fences, allowing stupid ass man children like me to have a lot of fun with it. It's not even funny, I don't know. We get inside the prison, and it doesn't seem that heavily guarded. Like, there were a few guards here and there, but like, not much at all. Fuck. Another one of those mechanical dogs lurks the halls of the prison, acting as a guard for what I can only imagine are for intruders and any unfortunate prisoners somehow managing to escape. We make it up to where the resistant members are locked up. Well, at least some of them. I feel like some of these fellas in here were probably locked up for fucking coughing too loud or something. Freeing them all, we come to learn that one of those people is Fergus himself. It's so bloody lovely seeing the Scottish fella again, and he's absolutely chuffed to see you too. But their reunion is interrupted because one of the prisoners tries opening the door, ending with one of the other prisoners getting sniped across the map, like it's fucking Hunt Showdown or some shit. We obviously aren't going to be leaving this prison without a fight, so let's fucking give him one. Escaping with Fergus, he knows where the resistance is. Turns out there still is one, and they're hidden in the middle of Berlin. Not exactly the smartest place to be hiding, but hey, what can you do? They're literally grasping at straws to survive at this point. Getting to the resistance base, we learned that it acts as some sort of a hub area. We can explore it, do little chores, talk to the other resistance members who are absolutely miserable and want fucking nothing to do with us.
Folder should be in the drawer in a desk in her room, where I left it.
Chin up, lads, it's only a Nazi-occupied world we live in. There's also this bed upstairs which takes us back to Wolfenstein 3D, which is rightfully named Nightmare, because if I had a dream where I was sent to a build engine version of our world, I would probably piss the bed. At this point in the game, after almost every mission, we always end up back in the base, where the next plan of what to do commences. These plans involve us traveling around the world, stealing gear and technology from the Nazis. One of those pieces of technology is the laser craft work, which completely replaces the laser cutter. Look at this beautiful thing, it's fucking gorgeous. One of these missions involves us going into a concentration camp to get an extremely smart scientist out of there to help the resistance. It's also where we encounter the lady from the train again, who's actually called Frau Engel. She runs this camp and she is a fucking revolting human being. Everything about this mission is so horrific and dire. There is this ginormous mechanical monstrosity that patrols the area with a huge furnace for a mouth. It's used to dispose of bodies or execute people. It's genuinely such a terrifying thing. We actually get caught at one point slinking around this mission, almost causing our execution by the hands of that machine, with Frau Engel as the main spectator. She definitely recognizes us now. Thankfully, earlier we met the scientist fella before this, who had a very special plan which we managed to complete right before the mech can get its hands on us. His plan was to take control of the thing, preventing our fate, but also giving Frau Engel a taste of our own medicine. And we run a massive fucking rampage through the camp on the machine, freeing everyone at the end. Like I said earlier, so many of these missions have the resistance acquiring extremely powerful equipment and gear to assist them, and one of these missions takes place on the moon, and it is a brilliant mission, let me tell you. But there's a scene within the mission that's incredibly powerful relating to the camp from earlier. BJ finds a table with a knife, and he carves the numbers tattooed onto his arm off from his time there. The pain he's feeling right now carving the numbers out is nothing compared to the pain and anguish felt within those camps. I genuinely respect Machine Games for making a mission set in a concentration camp, addressing what they would possibly have been like if the Nazis had won the war. They didn't just brush over it because it might upset or offend people. They fully acknowledge it, and I really respect them for that. Not to mention BJ's Jewish heritage, it just adds so much more to this scene. It's tragically brilliant. At the end of the moon mission, there's this impending feeling of dread and hopelessness. Everything just starts going to shit once you crash land back on Earth. You've been pushing so hard back against the Nazis this whole time, but all you've managed to do is scratch them at most. They are an unstoppable force, and you really feel it at this point. You even fight the big fucking mechanical monster from Death's Head's compound. This time you don't have a turret though, and you have to fucking use your weaponry on the ground. It is fucking intense. This impending doom is most felt when the resistance base is found and stormed by no one other than Frau Engel herself, with heavily armed Nazi soldiers, and you want nothing more than to get back there to stop it. You don't make it back in time. Almost everyone you care about has been either captured or killed, and the place is swarming with Nazis. You aren't gonna take any of this shit though, and you storm the place to take back what's yours. We learn that everyone who survived has been taken to Death's Head's compound as a prisoner, the place we originally stormed just before we lost the war to the Nazis, which means we end up back where it all started, but 14 years later, and this time it is far more heavily armed. But that isn't going to stop us. With absolutely zero hesitation, we go in guns blazing. The further up we get into the compound, the more lab-like it becomes. It's obvious we are getting closer to Death's Head himself. On the way there, we get interrupted by a Five Nights at Freddy's jump scare. We're tranquilized by this fella who I can only imagine is like Frau Engel's sexual partner. I didn't point him out because he's not really important. The dumbass tried tranquilizing a human brick and thought, hey, I'm gonna torture him to Frau Engel and kill him to satisfy her on Skype. But nope, you made a mistake, buddy. He is murdered right in front of Frau Engel, and that's the last we hear from her in this game. She took something we love, so we did the exact same to her. Severely injured by the stabbing and tranquilizer, we do end up meeting with Anya and the others who actually manage to escape. We all get into a lift together, but obviously something has to go wrong, and everyone escapes it apart from BJ. And while BJ is trapped in the lift, it's going up, straight towards Death's Head. And despite his injuries, he is fucking ready. Before this mission, BJ would get PTSD flashbacks to that day at Death's Head's compound, of the choice he had to make. It clearly weighs on his consciousness, and he probably blames himself for the death of Private Wyatt. When BJ gets up there, his first instinct is to shoot, filled with pure rage and anger. But Death's Head is smart and is behind bulletproof glass. Man, I fucking hate complimenting this guy, but he's bloody competent. After this, Death's Head gets up and picks up this little jar with a brain in it, asking BJ if he remembers his friend, causing a flashback that we did not see originally. A flashback I can only imagine BJ suppressed due to how horrific it was. A flashback of us being able to see what Death's Head did to Private Wyatt, slitting open his back and extracting his brain from behind. All of this after gouging the poor guy's eyes out. Death's Head takes the brain and puts it into a hulking mechanical abomination, setting it free to kill us. Wyatt's brain has no control over this machine. It must only be powered by his consciousness, because every time we manage to stun it, we hear Wyatt yearning for death. And on the final stun, BJ talks to Wyatt for the last time.
Wyatt, you in there?
Captain, I tried. So sorry I shot you. I have no control over my actions. Cannot live like this. You have to put an end to it.
Private, it was an honor to serve by your side.
And after that, we finally put the poor guy out of his misery once and for all. Private Wyatt is finally at peace, and BJ knows this now, so the only thing standing in his way is Death's Head himself. Ending in this bombastic boss fight with flames encasing the arena. You have to use what feels like your entire arsenal on this fella. He is absolutely no pushover. We take down his mech, leaving nothing but his frail ass to defend himself, and just before we finish him, we are greeted to one more flashback. A flashback remembering what he did, giving BJ even more reason to fuck this up. But Death's Head has one more trick up his sleeve. BJ just survives this grenade, but he's on his last legs. He knows he's not making it out of this alive. He knows what's at stake here, and he is all but ready and willing to sacrifice himself for what's right.
Glasgow, do you read? Am I clear to fire?
You're clear.
Such an incredible ending. Despite how powerful he was, William Joseph Blazkowicz was only a human being with the odds stacked against him. He knew what he was fighting for, and he knew what was right, and despite how many times he was knocked down, or he felt like it was the end, he never gave up. He's ready to go out knowing he may have made a difference. Wolfenstein The New Order is an incredible game, and I don't think enough people give it the credit it deserves. I feel as if it laid the groundworks for the resurgence of run-and-gun style shooters mimicking the old days that we have today. Everyone believes it's Doom 2016 that did this, and I mean, yeah, it was, but nobody ever mentions the game that comes before it, Wolfenstein The New Order. Wolfenstein The New Order is easily one of my favourite first-person shooter games ever created. It's a game that I feel is insanely underrated, and it does not get enough credit for what it did for the first-person shooter genre as a whole. If it wasn't for the direction and release of Wolfenstein The New Order, we probably wouldn't have Doom 2016, the game that gets almost all the credit for revitalising the first-person shooter genre from that horrific, grey-filtered corpse it was becoming. It's just like how we wouldn't have the original Doom if it wasn't for Wolfenstein 3D back in the 90s. If you don't know what Wolfenstein is at this point and you just stumbled across this video, 1, I hope the rock you're living under is very cozy. Who are you people? And 2, it's about a big human brick murdering the nasty men in a bad group that I'm going to refer to in this video as Nasties, as it sounds pretty similar to the actual name, and because I had a nightmare dealing with YouTube in the last video. Anyway, Wolfenstein The New Order was an incredible game. Not only was the gameplay incredible, with its insanely punchy gunplay amplified by a soundtrack composed by Mick Gordon himself, but the game told a really enjoyable story which shone a light on a lot of the real horrors caused by the Nasties in a tasteful way. It didn't hold back on showing the horrors of war, and it gave the main man himself, BJ Blazkowicz, so much personality. Machine Games gave this meat slab of a human being so much character it's unreal. They gave him a drive, emotions, and just the general good stuff you'd find in a well-written character. The general plot of Wolfenstein The New Order was about the Nasties winning World War II and taking over, hence why it's called The New Order. But before The New Order, BJ Blazkowicz made sure to spill a lot of old blood. Almost a year after the release of Wolfenstein The New Order, Machine Games cranked out Wolfenstein The Old Blood, a prequel to The New Order. We get to see the events leading up to the raid on Death's Head's compound. Hell, we even find out how they found Death's Head's compound in The Old Blood. It's like the entire plot of the game. It addresses quite a few little details that are present in The New Order. It's a much smaller scaled adventure, it was clearly made on a lower budget, but despite this, it does some things I actually prefer over The New Order. Rather than it being mission-based with a hub, The Old Blood is just one continuous level, with breaks being pre-rendered cutscenes and chapter screens. But that did not stop the environment artists from creating an incredible variety of places you run and gun through. There are 3 distinct locations: Castle Wolfenstein, the town, and the catacombs. But each area has so many variations that you never feel like it's just 3 distinct locations, if that makes sense. The castle has you going through prison blocks, it has you going high in the sky on the cable cars, the town literally becomes apocalyptic with fucking zombies literally raining from the sky.
Look at that. It's raining Nazis.
I can't make this shit up. The catacombs has an awesome looking graveyard that slowly turns into a tomb you'd see Indiana Jones exploring. Now that reminds me, I understand why Machine Games were chosen to make an Indiana Jones game now. Also, before I talk about gameplay and such, I just want to point out too that you've probably seen a few scenes from this game as memes on cesspits like Twitter. For example, the stabbing scene that's used to show what it's like to walk down the streets of London is from this game. Although if people wanted to be more accurate to what it's like walking through London, they should probably use this death animation from Resident Evil 4. There's also this really funny scene with the shotgun. You've most definitely seen these. I'm so sorry for making a section of this video about fucking meme clips of all things. Playing through The Old Blood will feel almost instantly familiar if you've played The New Order, as it uses the exact same engine and a lot of the same enemies and assets. Since it takes place during the time era of the intro of The New Order, you'll be using quite a few familiar weapons that you used in that intro mission. The Nasties also have far more primitive technology compared to how advanced they become in The New Order. Now, this doesn't mean there isn't anything new in The Old Blood, because there are quite a few new tools you can utilize. One of the biggest ones being this pipe, BJ's best friend.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end.
The pipe is the most useful tool throughout the entirety of The Old Blood. It acts as a melee weapon with two different forms, the pipe taken apart to dual wield and the pipe together to act as a two-handed melee weapon. BJ uses the pipe so many times during set pieces within the campaign, and he uses it to scale walls by literally shoving the pipe into the wall. Only this man has the upper body strength to pull off this shit. Oh well, of course, apart from you too. I'm really sorry, man, please don't kill me. There are some other new weapons introduced too. There's this grenade launch that you don't get much ammo for, so you gotta make your shots count with this bad boy. And then there's my personal favorite weapon, the Bombenschuss. I know I completely butchered saying that, but saying German words in a silly voice will never not be funny to me, with how aggressive the German language usually sounds.
Pinkeln, pinkeln, pupu, ploppy, stinkende Puh, scheiße, pinkeln.
This gun is a bolt-action rifle, and it's so powerful you can basically one-tap enemies with body shots most of the time, which is good for people who can't aim for shit. Like me. But you're gonna want to go for headshots regardless with how satisfying it is watching their heads explode. Ooh, I mean, you wouldn't expect any less from a Wolfenstein game, right? Well, speaking of something I did expect, the soundtrack for The Old Blood is just as amazing as the New Order's soundtrack, with Mick Gordon himself coming back to compose the bops. This time though, the tone of the soundtrack feels a lot more different. Rather than it being hopeless and somber with moments within the tracks having certain instruments kicking in to hype shit up, The Old Blood goes for a much more tense and chaotic soundtrack, which makes a lot of sense and fits The Old Blood. See, in the New Order, you were fighting a hopeless losing battle constantly. In fact, you had already lost at that point. Any attempt to fight back you made barely even dented the enemy, which is why a lot of the tracks were sad and oppressive. But BJ was the beacon of hope, the one taking a stand, which is why there were moments in those oppressive tracks where certain instruments would kick in, hyping you up. In The Old Blood, you're in the midst of fighting that losing battle. There is a lot riding on BJ to finish his mission infiltrating Castle Wolfenstein and getting the location of Death's Head's compound. If he were to fail, the world would stand no chance against the Nasties. So when you're alone and exploring, trying to find a way out, the music is quite intimidating and foreboding, not knowing where the enemies could be next. And then when you do get found out or stumble into an area full of Nasties, the music becomes intense and chaotic, like it was put together hastily, which fits the gameplay as you'll be fumbling about in the gunfire trying to figure out where to go and which weapons to use. Of course, the music is dynamic in the game, and the music stays tense when you're lucky enough to get the upper hand on the Nasties and stealth around in the shadows. Just like with the tone of the soundtrack, the tone in The Old Blood is quite the contrast to the New Order. It still has its messed up moments and it does take itself seriously for the most part. I mean, there's a part with zombies and a big eldritch horror. The game knows how stupid this shit is. You even have moments of BJ cracking absolute sillies during these moments. Hell though, even in these absolutely insane sections, there are deep character moments. It like takes this shit seriously, but also doesn't at the same time. I don't know how to say this. The Old Blood basically acts as a B-movie to the New Order, and the developers knew that, which is why the trailer for the game is a parody of an old movie trailer. Overall, I think Wolfenstein The Old Blood might actually be my favorite Wolfenstein game, despite its much smaller scale. Well, it would 100% be my favorite if it wasn't for a certain section at the beginning of the game that I don't think anyone in their right mind enjoys. Seriously, this forced stealth section can suck my ass. I feel like this shit puts so many people off of the game. I know you're escaping a heavily armed prison and you're supposed to be defenseless and shit, but hey, at least the New Order gave you a gun almost instantly after being comatose for years. That's my only issue with The Old Blood. It's one of the few games I've ever played that just keeps ramping up more and more the further you get into the game. It goes from borderline dog shit to holy fucking shit, this is really good very, very quickly. But the beginning is so awful, I completely understand why it would put anyone off. Which is such a shame because like I said earlier, Wolfenstein The Old Blood might actually be my favourite Wolfenstein game in this series. And despite the rough start, I highly recommend playing this game. Especially before going into the New Order, because the ending of The Old Blood actually leads perfectly onto the New Order. If you played them both back to back, it would be a very, very smooth transition. Anyway, I've talked enough about the gameplay and the soundtrack and the tone and shit. It's time to do what I did with my video on Wolfenstein The New Order. It's time to go through the story of the game. I could say you should watch my New Order video first, but because this game is a prequel, you could honestly watch this one first and then watch the video on the New Order after. Or watch that one first, then this. Honestly, each one works. If you're still here, grab yourself a coffee or one of those silly gamer drinks, get comfortable, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story of Wolfenstein The Old Blood. The game begins just like it did in the New Order, with BJ waking up, except this time he isn't waking up in a plane being shot at from every direction. Instead, he's in a car heading towards somewhere far more dangerous. He's accompanied by Richard Wesley, also known as Agent 1 on this mission. Both of them have been tasked with obtaining a top secret document on the whereabouts of Death's Head's compound. This is their last chance to fight back in this losing war, and the way to achieve this task is that they both have to enter the Wolf's Den itself, Castle Wolfenstein. The only way they can have any chance of entering is by going undercover as nasty officers. And there is one massive issue with this plan. BJ does not know German all too well, and Agent 1 tells BJ to just not talk at all, and as it will probably blow their cover if he does.
Okay, look, you're German? Frankly, it's atrocious. So no talking.
Once they get out of the car, everything seems to be going fairly smoothly. They've managed to get to the gates where they show their papers and, oh, a huge man walks in behind the person checking papers with a vicious mechanically enhanced canine by his side. And before BJ can hand over his papers, the man grabs his arm. This man is Rudy Jaeger, a high-ranking lieutenant. He towers over you and asks to confirm that your name is Frankfurt. But that's not what it says on the paper. He also asks if you're a Frankfurter. He's clearly fucking with you because that means sausage. And because of the immense amount of pressure building around, this is how BJ responds.
Ja, ein Hotdog.
Well, I thought the game would have ended there and then, but that shit seemed to have worked somehow. He lets BJ go, and of course Agent 1 is completely baffled by what just happened. We enter a cable car and make our way to the heart of Castle Wolfenstein. And on the way there, we get this incredible view of this place as we slowly go up to it. It's terrifying, yet you can't take your eyes off of the place as it slowly gets bigger and even more imposing as you approach. Once you arrive again, things go pretty smoothly. Nobody is batting an eye, although I feel really guilty about saluting one of these dickheads. Listen, he jump scared me in the moment and I saw a prompt and my reflexes kicked in. Once we had arrived, BJ and Agent 1 split up. Agent 1 goes to disable the alarm and BJ heads straight towards Helga's research center to get the documents. Helga is Castle Wolfenstein's commander, so it would make sense that the documents would be in her research center, the place where she probably spends most of her time. She's also an archaeologist and has found a few strange things.
It just works.
Unfortunately though, after some searching, we learn that the documents are just not here at all. There are a lot of weapons and ammo though. I wonder why that is. BJ finds a radio and uses it to contact Ludwig Kessler, the German resistance leader hiding out in a village nearby. We inform him that we couldn't find the document for Death's Head's compound, but we're rudely interrupted while doing so. Agent 1 failed to turn off the alarm, so we get bombarded with nasty soldiers storming the research center. You hold out, and just before more can come, Agent 1 shows his face with a nice ladder to get you the fuck out of there. We follow him into a vent, we drop down, and we are given a very warm welcome to Castle Wolfenstein. Shit. BJ wakes up at the bottom of his cell. He doesn't waste any time though. He still has a mission to complete and he knows what's at stake, so he tries to climb out almost instantly, using his stupid upper body strength. But the pipe he's climbing on can't handle the weight of the human slab, and he falls back down with a bit of the pipe joining him, which is where we're introduced to the best character in the entire game, the pipe. BJ thinks on his feet instantly and he uses the pipes as climbing picks to scale the wall of his cell and escape. Massive super soldiers are walking around the area making sure no one escapes from their cells, wielding massive miniguns. Due to the pretty primitive technology though, they're all wired up to the ceiling, limiting the areas where they can walk. The wires are also powered by huge generators, which when disabled makes them completely defenseless, allowing you to jam your pipe in and get rid of their life support for good. To give this section some credit, you are able to pick up the minigun the super soldiers were holding to use it on the others, but it feels like it takes every single bullet in the thing to kill one of them, so it's not really worth doing it. This entire section is just basically a rinse and repeat of turning off the power and slowly chipping away at the super soldiers patrolling the area. It just keeps going and going until BJ finds himself in another prison area, an area where the prisoners are all out of their cells, but despite this, they all look absolutely hopeless. BJ talks to one of them and the prisoner instantly mistakes him for someone else.
Oh, mein Junge. Bist du von der Front zurück? Ich hätte nie gedacht, dass ich dich wiedersehe. Oh.
Clearly the guy's completely lost his mind from the horrific conditions. In fact, in the center of this area in the prison, there is a giant gaping hole, which I can imagine a lot of prisoners have jumped down just to get away from this horrific place. Our curiosity of trying to find a way out of here gets the best of us here, and we open a door getting caught instantly by a guard who stabs us on sight. But you can't outstab BJ with his pipe. There's also a Panzerhund walking around this prison area. I can't imagine what kind of horrific shit this hulking metallic monstrosity does to the prisoners. It's quite scary. Crawling through the vents, we spot an unsuspecting nasty commander. He's looking away, which gives BJ the chance to introduce him to his pipe.
I love you.
The commander was armed with a pistol, which we take instantly, and luckily for us, the pistol has a suppressor on it, which gives us the opportunity to stealth instantly, which is definitely what we will want to do at this point, because the nasties in this area are far more heavily armed with assault rifles, which again actually gives us another opportunity to take one down and equip ourselves with an assault rifle. But despite that, I think it's a good idea to keep slinking about for now and avoid conflict. Oh shit. I guess not then. We shoot our way through the enemy forces pushing us and equip ourselves with a Kampfpistol, which is just a little grenade launcher. Hell fucking yeah. We got on a boat which is thankfully equipped with a mounted gun, and we shoot our way through the tunnels of the interior docking area, which then takes us to the exterior of Castle Wolfenstein, which is of course heavily guarded and locked. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Hey, it's not an issue because the gameplay is so awesome, so yeah, if anything, this is a good thing. After murdering the nasties outside the gate, we figure out what we need to do, and what we need to do is get this gate open, and to do so, we need to find the gate controls. I mean, fucking obviously. We end up stealthing and shooting our way through more and more nasty forces, and we stumble upon the Bombenschuss, the best weapon in the game. Oh, of course, aside from the pipe. Anyway, we should be nearing the gate controls now. Let's just jump down here and... Shit. We've accidentally fallen into some sort of catacomb underneath Castle Wolfenstein, which goes to show the incredible variety in areas in this game. We scale our way back to the top, gain a brilliant scope for the rifle which I cannot aim with for shit, and we pull the lever for the gate, and that only opens up one lock. Guess it's time to go find the other one. Thankfully, the other level was far easier to get to, with only a little bit of resistance on the way. Unfortunately though, the nasties were expecting us, and as soon as we open up the gate, we are bombarded with enemies. I mean, we take care of them pretty easily. And with that done and dusted, it's time to head into the heart of Castle Wolfenstein. Once we get inside, again, they knew we were coming, and they have a nice present ready for us. A super soldier. A super soldier who isn't wired up to the roof, one that can freely walk anywhere it wants. I also learned the hard way that pipes no longer work against these fellas. Still wasn't too much of a hassle for BJ though. I don't think the nasties were expecting him to succeed, as the place is flooded with even more enemy forces once you take down the super soldier. I mean, we have the fella's minigun now, so storming in here is a bit of a silly idea on their part. We gradually make our way through Castle Wolfenstein, picking off nasties one by one with our pipe, or just a lovely gunshot to the face, and eventually we end up stumbling upon a room with a familiar face in it. We find Agent 1. He's being brutally tortured and obviously in a lot of pain. In his pained voice, he tells BJ about a little tactic he uses to bear with the immense amount of pain and suffering from the torturing.
I have a secret trick. Count to 4. Inhale. Count to 4. Exhale. You got it.
Instantly, this will sound familiar, as BJ remembers this and uses it in some of the most horrifying moments he endures in the New Order.
Count to 4. Inhale. Count to 4. Exhale.
Their reunion is quickly interrupted though. BJ wakes up on the chair Agent 1 was sat on, and we are greeted by another familiar face. Although it's definitely one we don't want to be seeing. It's Rudy Yeager, and just off to the left we see Agent 1's corpse being devoured by one of Yeager's mechanical canines. Yeager lectures us about how his father was killed by electrocution due to the fact he was stood in water, and how the human body has water in it, which is the reason why he'll be torturing us with electricity, unless we give him answers about who our contact is in the village nearby. And BJ answers very wisely,
Claus.
Who is this Claus?
Santa Claus.
Obviously he doesn't take this lightly and we get zapped. He stops to say how stupid we are for not answering, and again, BJ responds very wisely.
When I break free, I will fry you in this chair till you die.
Resulting in our own pipe being lodged into our leg. At this point, BJ uses the method Wesley taught him to cope with the pain just before he died, helping him endure. Yeager gives us one more chance to answer the question before he kills us there and then. Guess what BJ does?
And when I'm done with you, I will kill your dog.
The end is nearing, but a stupid electric chair cannot stop the human tank that is BJ Blazkowicz. And the crazy fucker breaks free with his inhuman strength, pulls the pipe out of his leg, stabs Yeager in the chest, throws him onto the chair, and gives him a taste of his own fucking medicine. His dog tries to defend him, but we do what we said and we kill his dog right in front of him. But this distraction gives him a chance to flee. The room is just about to be flooded with nasty forces called in by Yeager. But before that happens, we make sure that Wesley rests in peace. All of our weapons have been taken from us, but we quickly arm ourselves again by murdering the closest poor bastard unfortunate enough to even think about shooting BJ. We blast our way through more enemy forces before finding a lift to take us up higher through Castle Wolfenstein, which is where we find out that BJ has been topless this whole time. The man is a tank, what can I say? At the top of the lift, we find ourselves in a familiar location. We're in the cable car station, the one that we came in through at the start, except this time it has so many nasty soldiers patrolling and guarding the area. They knew we were coming, they prepared, and they're probably terrified of the topless meat slab running around committing mass genocide. We rush to the nearest cable car and activate it amidst gunfire. Seems like it's pretty smooth sailing from here on out, and oh, they shut off the power. Which means there's only one option right now, and it's not a very smart one. The pipe in this game is literally peak, you cannot tell me otherwise. We switch back on the power and get into the nearest cable car. Again, it should be pretty smooth sailing from here on out, and they shut off the power again. Surely it can't get any worse than this. Okay, I should probably just stop talking. We swim out of the wrecked cable car into a cave overrun by nasties because they seem to have guards around every single fucking corner around Castle Wolfenstein. They think they got us and we're dead from the cable car crash, so they've let their guard down a bit. I wouldn't blame them for thinking that, but who are we playing as again? Oh right, yeah. We fight our way through Castle Wolfenstein and manage to get into the car park where we came in from. The place is flooded with nasty soldiers ready to open fire on BJ, but he doesn't even break a sweat taking them all down. The nasties seem a bit quiet now. Have they finally given up? Oh, okay, that's a Panzerhund. And it's dead. Just want to remind you, we're just the topless man against all of this shit going on. It's kind of insane. The only place to go now is the village nearby, where Kessler is waiting in a tavern for us. We aren't met with any resistance in the village. In fact, the place feels completely abandoned apart from this one drunk guy rambling about God knows what. At the tavern door, we are met with a young girl. That girl being Annette, a young Jewish girl Kessler is sheltering from the nasties. It feels like we're in a safe place now. I can imagine BJ is quite tired, so he decides to go upstairs and take a rest on the nearest mattress. In his sleep, he has a nightmare where he's in a pixelated hellhole where he is completely lost in similar looking rooms, constantly searching for a key to escape. Where is the key? He can't find the key. Will he ever be able to escape this nightmare? Yeah, they brought back these little nightmare Easter eggs in The Old Blood, and they're very cool Easter eggs. Walking into the tavern, we see the place completely boarded up and tables are flipped acting as cover. It's very obvious what's gonna be happening in here. We finally get to meet Kessler in person, but our meeting is cut short because the nasties know we're here and they send in the hounds. Annette has been injured by the dog and it's not safe for her here. Kessler points out a hatch to go through to get out of here and we open it up for them to get into safely. We don't join them though because we know what we need to do. Anyway, with that sorted, it's time to let them know it's safe.
Never mind.
Rudy Yeager blasts through the front, completely decked out in armor, wielding 2 miniguns. We take care of the fucker by slowly stripping him of his armor by damaging him enough to deactivate his suit, up until we take his helmet off and finish the job. He's decked out the armor with some sort of self-destruct system, so yeah, let's get the fuck out of here. There's no time to lose, we all get on a boat and escape. There's still a job that needs to be done though. We need that document and Kessler informs us of someone who knows Helga's exact whereabouts, their codename being Agent 2. We don't know who this person is, but we know where they are now, so with a brand new objective, we push those two under the boating house to hide out safely, and we go out to find this person, and find that bloody document we've been trying to get all this time. As you would expect, the village is completely swarmed with nasty soldiers, between here and where we need to go. A silly little killing spree later. We find the location and the person in the place gives us instructions on entering the building. I guess we need to be discreet or some shit, so we go in from a window on the side, and once inside, BJ is instantly met with a familiar face.
Bloody hell. Where's your shirt, you handsome sod?
Agent 2 is a woman named Pippa. She's here undercover as a nurse, and she has a dead nasty in her bed. Turns out that nasty is one of Helga's flunkies. Not my words, it was hers. She got information out of him that Helga is in a tavern nearby, and that she has the document with her, which is very useful information indeed. We have to go undercover as a waiter. We need to put a shirt on for starters, and stash our guns away somewhere, because waiters don't usually carry firearms, surprisingly. We swim through some sewers, climb a wall with our trusty pipe because I guess it's okay for waiters to carry pipes but not firearms, and we make our way into the tavern. All we need to go undercover is to put on an apron and carry a tray of wine because Helga loves wine or some shit. We make our way through the tavern completely overrun with nasties celebrating and drinking their sorrows away until we make our way into the room Helga's in. She doesn't seem to suspect a thing and the document is right there on her desk. BJ pulls a sneaky maneuver with the tray and makes his way out. Oh god fucking damn it. Helga wants us to take a seat. In a scene very reminiscent to the train section in The New Order with Frau Engel, Helga monologues to BJ about something. I actually didn't play with subtitles on because it looks better for footage, and she speaks a lot of German at this point. She makes us try the wine. Maybe she suspects it being poisoned or some shit. It hasn't been though, it just tastes like shit because it's wine. Helga tries a bit too, and yeah, she's not the biggest fan of it. Knowing this, she makes you drink the rest of it. Then suddenly, after more tension and monologuing, she speaks English.
Because, my dear, incompetent Shriner, he's not a waiter. He's a spy!
Oh, I wonder how she found that out. I wonder if it was the pipe BJ had on him. It seems like this is the end. There's a gun pointed at our head. We might as well accept our fate. But suddenly, Helga gets a call. A nasty soldier explains to her how they used dynamite on a crypt they had found, and a weird gas was leaking from it. This distraction gives BJ the opportunity to strike, but he is quickly interrupted by a random ass earthquake, which actually impacts his aim, and he ends up missing like he's playing the game on a controller or some shit. And then suddenly...
Sie haben den Boden mit Dynamit gesprengt. Das muss das Erdbeben ausgelöst haben.
Gott, diese Stadt.
Raus! Schnell, bevor das ganze Gebäude einstürzt. Wir müssen zur Ausgrabungsstätte.
After regaining consciousness, BJ's first instinct is to contact Kessler to make sure he's okay, but all we get in return is static. Something is wrong. Everything is covered in a blanket of a hellish saturated orange light. We need to head back to the boathouse to make sure Kessler and Annette are okay. After some exploring, we spot a lone nasty soldier, so we drop down to murder him and arm ourselves with his weaponry like we usually do with these fuckers, and oh fuck, he's a zombie, what?! So yeah, every dead fella around has been transformed into a shambling corpse. Even the dogs are zombies now. We make our way back to Pippa, but the way in is blocked off by pieces of wood, and we see that the corpse that was laying on her bed has been reanimated, and we don't get through in time to save her. That's another agent down, sadly. We reach into the chest by the bed to re-equip ourselves with our weaponry, and while doing so, we witness Pippa come back from the dead. So we grab our firearms as quickly as possible and put her out of her misery. Bit overkill, but I guess it was effective. We head through the town blasting nasty zombies left and right, who were probably the ones we gunned down earlier in the village. You can easily get overrun by these fellas. They act slow at first, but when you least expect it, they quickly shamble towards you, catching you off guard. It doesn't help that they all come in pretty big groups too. Anyway, we manage to make our way back to the boathouse and we pull out the boat. Kessler and Annette have gone missing. They probably fled after the earthquake. Luckily for us though, Kessler left his double-barrel shotgun, but the tip of it has been damaged, which means we gotta saw that shit off, leading on to this silly scene. Now we have a sawed-off shotgun, and you know you can't have a zombie apocalypse. And you know you can't have a zombie apocalypse without a sawed-off shotgun. Further into the village, we encounter Kessler and Annette, but they're both in trouble, and at this point, we're met with a choice. Both of them are in separate buildings, and we only have time to save one of them. Very similar to a certain choice you had to make in The New Order. I decided to save Kessler because he's a huge asset for this mission. The guy has far more experience compared to Annette, also because I didn't have the achievement yet for saving him, because I usually save Annette. Yeah. I mean, hey, I might still have time to save her. Okay, I guess not. BJ doesn't let this choice get to him. He still has a mission to finish. He needs to find Helga again and get that document. She's probably at the excavation site where they caused this zombie outbreak. So we gotta head through the village to get there. On the way there, we find an abandoned nasty mech. Hell fucking yeah. It's a huge help with getting through, especially past the hordes of zombies in our way. And eventually, we have to abandon the mech as BJ uses its arm to get over the wall to the graveyard leading to the excavation site. There's nothing stopping BJ now, it's just one straight line straight to where Helga is. And something awesome about the excavation site is the gas creating the zombies is in the air. So when you kill a normal nasty, there is a chance that they will become a zombie almost instantly, which creates a nice bit of infighting. As a whole, this might be my favourite area just from the aesthetics alone. Anyway, BJ makes his way through the excavation site, slowly getting deeper and deeper underground. Eventually he finds himself in some long abandoned tombs that the nasties have dug up. They must have had a lot of casualties finding this area because it is flooded with zombies. Eventually we find ourselves at the heart of the excavation site, which is where we fall for one of Helga's traps as we pry open the door. Helga has everything she needs for a master plan. The ground starts shaking as something huge comes our way. Luckily though, the shaking is enough to knock BJ to the floor by his pipe. While on the ground, we witness what Helga was trying to find. What the fuck? Even BJ freezes up and stops trying to pry himself out of the chains because I can imagine he is in absolute shock at what he is witnessing. Helga attempts to tame the beast. She even tries to convince it to scran on BJ. But I mean, she's closer, so you know. Easier food. I don't know why she even bothered trying. BJ gets free and quickly arms himself, leading to the final boss fight of the game, where we have to avoid all kinds of slam attacks and sweeps by ducking and constantly being on the move. It seems like all odds are stacked against you, but in the end, BJ comes out victorious, putting the monster down for good. After taking down the giant monster, we head back through the room that we came from, and in that room, we find Helga on the verge of death with the folder for Death's Head's compound next to her. She's so wounded she can barely get a word out before flopping to the ground. We give her a nice send-off. And then pick up the document that caused so much death, destruction, and pain. Suddenly, a boulder lands on BJ's head, knocking him out.
Jesus Christ. Nazi bits fucking everywhere. Here he is.
Fergus.
We're saved by the Scottish lad Fergus, and he helps us out of the excavation site. While riding a boat with him through the village, we see that the place is no longer overrun by zombies. We've stopped the outbreak, and allies are here to help and rescue any civilians caught up in this. This is a definite win for us, and we may feel a bit of relief now, but it's far from over for BJ.
Now it's time to get it done, eh? And the world is counting on us and all that. No pressure. Except my goddamn bladder.
Monster never dies, no matter how many times you kill it. Just sheds its skin and changes form. I feel the weight of the world pushing me down. I try to carry it nonetheless. One last time. Then I can rest.
This is only the beginning. Wolfenstein The Old Blood is an insanely underrated game, and it may honestly be my favourite Wolfenstein game, but only when I close my eyes and forget about the beginning section of the game. It's much smaller in terms of scale compared to The New Order, and it does definitely show in a lot of places, although it's in quite a few places that I actually prefer. There are far less high-budget, grainy pre-rendered cutscenes, although sadly they still exist in this game, and the much shorter length means the game doesn't outstay its welcome at all. The story is nowhere near as deep as The New Order's, but despite the smaller scale, it still tells a very engaging story with some awesome characters. Characters you do care for when they eventually die. It leads beautifully onto The New Order, and it acts as such an incredible prequel to one of the best shooters of that generation. Also, the pipe is definitely one of the best characters ever. Okay, anyway, I think that's all the Wolfenstein Reboot games, right? I think I'm done with this series now. Damn, I've had nothing but praise for this franchise. I love it so much. Oh. Do any of you remember E3? It was cringy and awful, but it was pretty iconic.
If you guys didn't know, Need for Speed Payback, yeah, it's a great game.
I miss it so much. Specifically, do you all remember E3 2017? So many games that turned out to be absolute bangers were announced that year. Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Cuphead, Spider-Man 2018, Monster Hunter World, Metro Exodus, oh, and of course we can't forget Metroid Prime 4. Oh wait, that one never came out. Bethesda had their own conference during E3 2017, and they came swinging with some absolute bangers. They showed off a little standalone expansion for the Dishonored franchise, Dishonored Death of the Outsider. They also showed a sequel for The Evil Within, which surprised absolutely everyone with, quite frankly, one of my absolute favourite cinematic trailers ever made. It is so stylish. Then something strange happened. There was a live-action trailer of some random-ass woman finding two men in trouble. One of them is stuck underneath a car, and the other is trying to flip the car over with a giant stick. The woman, clearly seeing these two in distress, decides to blow on her whistle and call out a name, which is when we see what this trailer is for. It's a Wolfenstein trailer. Wait, what? They show off some more weird live-action skits until we see a strange monkey cat specimen turn off the TV, transitioning to an in-engine cutscene, which is where the camera pans over to a bed with BJ lying in it. Wait, he survived? So much is happening here. Look, there's spooky ghosts. There's this one scene with a nasty officer in a diner which is incredibly tense, harkening back to the train section in The New Order, staring your enemy down without them realizing who you are. Speaking of that train section, Frau Engel is back for revenge, and then after all this story shit, we see gameplay. Holy hell, BJ is murdering nasties in a wheelchair. Okay, he can run through walls now too, I guess. Oh, and of course nasty officers themselves. There's stilts now to access higher areas, and he can crawl through tight confined areas, which will obviously help with stealth. This is Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus, a huge follow-up to The New Order. Everything seemed bigger than the previous games. More action, more story, just more everything. Probably why it's called the New Colossus, because it was gonna be a colossal game. You get it? Then it came out. And I loved it. It was so fun from start to end. Just every second of it was an absolute blast. The thing is though, that was at launch back in 2017. I was a dumbass 16-year-old at the time. Now I'm 22, and after replaying the game again, I personally think it should have done what BJ did at the end of The New Order, and stayed dead. It's quite possibly one of the most inconsistent games I've ever played in terms of quality. Sometimes it's a lot of fun with its hefty gunplay, you know, the usual Wolfenstein shit, running around as a human meat slab, but then you remember you're playing as a rotten meat slab that can only have half of its health. Some of the levels looked absolutely incredible, with an amazing art direction, but most of the levels take place within bases that usually have a sad color palette of grey and red. Then there's the story itself, which is easily the most inconsistent thing. Some sections are deep and horrific, shining a light on the atrocities the nasties are capable of, tackling incredibly dark themes. Then there's the Marvel tier jokes and horribly directed scenes that just make you want to die from secondhand embarrassment.
Well, the toilet works.
The New Colossus is such a mixed bag in my opinion. I truly do want to love this game as much as I love The Old Blood and The New Order, but I just can't. Everything I do like is just outweighed by shit that annoys me. It really feels like the writers didn't know what to do with the story of the game. And I mean, that makes a lot of sense with how The New Order ended. BJ was supposed to die sacrificing himself for the cause, but no, he's alive because everyone came back for him at the last second. They had to live with their mistake of keeping him alive, and the beginning mission has him in a wheelchair, which, to give the game credit, is a really good intro mission. It's better than The Old Blood's forced stealth section, that's for sure. Ooh. That shit gives me nightmares. Then BJ eventually gets the power suit after Caroline is killed, allowing him to walk around, but he's still injured, which means your health is capped at 50. This makes the gameplay far more frustrating than it needs to be, as your health melts even faster than it did in the previous games. Not to mention they got trigger happy with the spawning of commanders in areas. These fuckers are everywhere. You get absolutely no downtime in most missions because you see another one of these things appear every fucking second. It does give you an excuse to see the amazingly satisfying hatchet takedowns though. These are very good. There was this one bit from when I recorded footage that whenever I would spawn back in after dying, I would instantly be bitten by a dog and mowed down like 5 seconds after. Like it felt borderline soft locked, but I managed to get out of it after 5 tries. There are some perks that outweigh it though. Gunplay is still as amazing as it's always been, and the combat is as fast-paced as you'd expect. Something new to the New Colossus is you're able to dual-wield any weapons together, and while doing so, you move at a normal speed now, which I can imagine BJ is only able to do because of the power armor he's wearing. Like I said, this game is just such a mixed bag. There's only so many times I can say this. I probably even say it in the title of the video. I'm gonna have to get back to myself on that one. Back on the topic of the story of the game though, as that's probably the main offender of the New Colossus, there are moments in the game that are so heartfelt and well written. Then there are others that are just, well, I already pointed it out earlier. The game tries to be funny at some of the worst moments, and there are plot points and sections that are just fucking absurd and just over the top. Although to give the game credit, there's a section with a certain horrible person who I probably can't name in this video, but I do name him later, but he's the nastiest out of all the nasties.
Adolf, my son, this painting is fucking shit. It's fucking crap. You're never going to get into art school, you useless piece of shit.
The way he's portrayed is incredible. He's made out to be this frail, old, feeble man on a complete power trip that's gone to his head. He fucking pisses in a bucket and chunders on the floor right in front of you. Yet despite this stupid ass shit, the section where you encounter him is incredibly tense, and I remember having my arse clenched the entire time when I first played the game. Oh, you can also kill him for an achievement when you regain control of BJ. You get killed instantly, but I mean, hey, at least you got your achievement. You can put it on your Steam profile and show everyone that you ended World War II yourself single-handedly. Wear that achievement proudly. Mick Gordon makes a return for the soundtrack of Wolfenstein 2. Although this was, before all the drama with Bethesda. Just like with the other Wolfenstein games, Mick did an incredible job here. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. He completely outdid himself with this game. This was post-Doom 2016 Mick Gordon. He had really hit his stride with his music-making prowess, and it shows in almost every single track. It's like the soundtrack from The New Order and The Old Blood, but amped up to 500. The ominous, intimidating tracks showcasing the power of the nasties are far more intimidating. I mean, just listen to Frau Engel's theme. Then he just goes all out on the music where you're running and gunning, feeling like a descendant of the Doomslayer himself. But there's always a fucking catch with this game, and the catch for the soundtrack is the audio mixing is terrible. It was pretty bad in the other games, don't get me wrong, but in this game you just cannot hear the music half the time, which is a crime because the soundtrack is so good. We just can't have nice things with the new Colossus, can we? Like, let me show you how bad it is. The gameplay you're seeing right now, the music setting is on max during this. Can you even hear the music? Like, this isn't edited, it's ridiculous. How did they fuck this up? Mick Gordon was so passionate about making the best soundtrack he could for the new Colossus. He even made propaganda music for the nasties. He made this one song called Changeover Day about forcing Americans to learn German instead of English or else. And it's the most upbeat, passive-aggressive song I've ever heard in my entire life.
Changeover day, make sure you know the date. After the 4th of July, be careful what you say. Changeover day for the Nazi USA. We all know that German is much better anyway.
Changeover Day also takes place on the 4th of July, which is a nice little detail. Who needs independence anyway? We want a country run by this wet tissue. I'm sorry, I just wanted an excuse to show that scene again. It's just really funny. We actually see a glimpse of Changeover Day during the game, and it's where we witness this amazing exchange with a nasty soldier and some spooky ghosts.
Have you taken your German lessons?
Oh, yes, sir.
Good. You, how do you say thank you in German?
Oh, of course, sir. Let me see. It's,
Yes?
Dank.
Yes, out with it.
Danke.
My God.
Was that all right?
No, that was terrible. You're butchering my beautiful language. It's Danke schön, verdammt. Say it.
Danke schön?
Incorrect. Danke schön.
Danke schön?
I've heard enough. No more.
So yeah, Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus. There's only so many ways I can call this game a mixed bag without it getting annoying to hear. Honestly, it's already starting to piss me off editing this, so I can't imagine how you viewers feel. I'm so sorry. Anyway, now's the time to do what I did for my previous Wolfenstein videos. I'm gonna go in depth talking about the entire game, and oh boy, this is gonna be a long one. Before I start though, I need to specify I'll be going with the Fergus timeline for this, as I want to keep it consistent with my video on The New Order. Anyways, sit back, relax, maybe grab yourself a Sneak Energy, use my affiliate link in the description, and enjoy me talking about and kinda complaining about Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. just like with the other Wolfenstein games, we wake up, although this time we aren't heading towards our doom. Instead, we're in a bedroom with a woman sitting on our bed with us. The woman talks about how if she ever had a son, she would give this ring to them, implying we're playing as her son right now. After talking about the legacy of the ring, she refers to us by name.
Can you imagine that, Billy?
We're BJ right now, and we're clearly in some flashback, and it's very obvious that BJ lived in Mexico in the Breaking Bad universe because of the brown filter covering the screen. We hear a loud slam that startles BJ's mother and his dog, and we hear a faint manly voice in the distance. It's BJ's father. As we see him slowly come up the stairs, we're told by our mother to not tell him about the ring, and before we can know why, we fade to the present day with BJ being operated on after his battle with Death's Head in The New Order. He fades back into his memory again. This time he's hiding in a closet with his dog, witnessing his father abuse and belittle him and his mother. BJ's mother resists, resulting in the dad to smack her, which then causes the dog to jump out of the closet to defend her, exposing BJ. The dad overpowers the dog, leaving only BJ to defend himself against him, which is the first boss fight of the game. Such an intense fight, you have to throw vases at him while he belittles you.
Keep them coming, candy ass.
Obviously, he overpowers BJ and he drags him into the basement and straps his arm down with a belt. He wants to teach BJ a lesson he'll never forget, and he lures his dog into the basement by tapping her food bowl on the floor. As soon as the dog comes in, BJ's father hands him a double-barrel shotgun and tells him to pull the trigger on the poor dog. Some genius game design allows us to slightly aim away from the dog to deliberately miss. But this ultimately just makes his dad despise him more, and the dog unfortunately dies regardless. BJ wakes up to the sounds of gunshots and fighting and instantly gets out of bed. He's been in a coma for the past 5 months, and his brain is somewhat fried from it, to the point where he questions if the person in the mirror is even himself.
Who is that? Is that me? Is that me?
Then it suddenly hits him how fucked up his body is, and he falls to the ground, conveniently right next to a wheelchair. As soon as he gets onto the wheelchair, he sees one of his allies at the door being mowed down by nasty forces. He managed to hold off the ones attacking him, but he's severely wounded and he sits by the doorway to rest, which is where we roll him up to him and startle the fuck out of him, resulting in us being shot in the face. Just kidding, he does point the gun at us in fear, but instantly realizes who we are. He tells us the nasties are here specifically to find and kill him, handing us a gun to defend ourselves. During his 5-month coma, BJ had kinda made a name for himself for what he did during the New Order and the Old Blood. While he was seen as a hero and a leader for the last remaining resistance members, he was also seen as a horrific terrorist out to ruin and destroy everything by the nasties, and random civilians believed it too. Because, well, the nasties had already won the war at this point and had control over basically every single piece of media. They gave him the nickname Terror Billy, and he was absolutely feared, which is why they've gone out of their way to find him, to put him down for good and end his terror. But, well, I mean, we aren't gonna let him get us without a fight though. BJ has one goal on his mind while mowing down nasties. He wants to find Anya, his partner, who is currently pregnant with twins. The last thing he'd want to happen is for her to get killed by the nasty. So during his first encounter with a friendly, all he wants to know is where Anya is. He doesn't care about anything else.
Anya, where is she?
That specific friendly is Set Roth, an incredible scientist that you may remember from the New Order. He helped you break out of the concentration camp. Well, while you've been in a coma, he's set up microwave traps around the place to defend you. And these things just make anyone that comes in contact with them explode into chunks of flesh. It's brutal shit. We roll our wheelchair through the submarine. Yeah, I should have mentioned we're in a submarine right now. To be specific, the one we stole in the New Order. Another throwback to a better game. Eventually we find Anya after she saves us from a nasty soldier that ambushed us. Which is where we get quite possibly one of the absolute worst button prompts I've ever seen in my entire life. We let Anya know we're okay by pressing E because BJ just has a giant keyboard on his lap, and we regroup with the others who are holding out to the best of their ability at the top of the submarine, which is where we see a giant nasty airship has latched onto the sub. Down below we see Fergus, who is already knocked on the floor, the silly Scottish man. Oh, and Caroline in her power armor fighting for their lives. And it looks like she's doing a good job too. Oh, well shit, never mind. Behind them, we see a door open and see Fergus try and raise a pistol to kill the people coming out of the door. But they're stopped by this unknown figure. Well, she is unknown until we hear that horrible, familiar German voice.
Das weißt du nicht?
It's Frau Engel, and she is here for revenge because of what we did in the New Order. She makes a deal with the Resistance, saying she's only here for BJ, and the others will be spared if they give him up. Which is obviously a lie, but you know. Something I love about this scene is we never see her full face. It's always obscured, and that's because they don't want to show us the horrific scar we gave her back in the camp. There's also another woman behind her, but we'll get to her in a bit. BJ offers to give himself up to give the others a chance, but he's also told that within the airship he could detach it from the submarine, allowing them to escape. It's a plan that probably won't work because, I mean, look at BJ. But it's the only plan they have, sadly. So he rolls on up to the nasty soldier guards, and they just laugh at the state he's in.
You going to run us over with your little wheelchair?
They drag him to Frau Engel and throw him on the floor. She then commands a super soldier to punch the armor off of Caroline too, and throws her on the floor next to BJ. Caroline tries to talk to BJ and explain how all of this is her fault and she fucked up trying to apologize. But before she can, BJ is pulled up from the ground, and this is where we get a good view of Frau Engel's crooked face. She taunts us a bit, laughing at the state we're in, just like the nasty guards before us. She should be careful though, because I mean, we did wipe out like 80 of them in a wheelchair, so she shouldn't really be laughing too much. Behind her is the woman I mentioned earlier. This is Sigrun Engel, Frau Engel's daughter. She's handed an axe by her mother to execute Caroline as she's held up by the super soldier, but she can't bring herself to do it and refuses. Which is surprising, because you'd think someone related to this piece of shit would also be a horrific monster, but no, I guess not. She's constantly belittled and taunted by Frau Engel for being empathetic and not a piece of shit, as she decides to do the job herself with no hesitation. Caroline is literally just killed off there and then. The leader of the Resistance is just gone like that. Frau Engel fucks with you a bit and starts kissing you with her severed head like the morbid monster she is. Then she moves on to Fergus. Now I always tense my ass at this bit because Fergus is, well, Fergus, the funny Scottish guy. They can't kill him off, right? Well no, they can't, because before Frau Engel can slam the axe down through his throat, she's pushed by Sigrun, causing her to miss and cut his arm off instead. Sigrun hands him a pistol, allowing him to shoot all the guards around him DMC style, and he slides Caroline's body armor over to you. Then we get this awkward scene where all this fighting is going on around while BJ is just slowly putting himself into the armor. It's kind of goofy. We can walk now with the help of the power armor. Yippee! It would be funny if you had to play through the entire game in the wheelchair though. Hopefully we get that in the third game when BJ is the decrepit, frail old man. Despite saving everyone's life, Fergus doesn't trust Sigrun at first, putting the pistol she gave him to her head. Before he can pull the trigger, she tells him she can help them. She tells Fergus she can help them by giving them military secrets, and she knows how to release the submarine on the airship. She opens the door for us to release the sub. But before we get into the mission itself, we are first introduced to this slam move we can do with the body armor, and this is literally the only point in the entire game where this thing is useful. Like, I cannot think of any other section where it's needed. I just want to point that out. It's really stupid. In this mission, we're introduced to a lot of the base systems and mechanics, like the nasty officers who call in reinforcements and alert everyone if you're spotted, which teaches you that you're able to stealth around combat arenas and avoid combat entirely. You're also introduced to the hatchet for stealth kills, which has some of the most brutal animations I've ever seen. The super soldiers make a grand return too, and we fight one for the first time here. They're far more advanced this time, equipped with different types of weaponry. The best one is the super soldier with the laser gun that goes... It's very awesome. I like the way it melts shit, it looks cool. We eventually make it to the controls and we detach the airship from the submarine, allowing the Resistance to escape. But we're still on the airship though, and so are Fergus and Sigrun, so we fight our way back to them and take an escape pod thanks to the help of Sigrun knowing how to activate them. But before we leave, BJ picks up Caroline's body to take back. When they get back, BJ carries her through the corridors of the sub, with everyone just looking hopeless at the fact that they've lost their leader. Then we get an abrupt cut to Fergus getting a new robot arm to replace his one that he unfortunately lost. It's really abrupt, I'm not even joking, it just happens. Whilst in pain, Fergus states a plan now that Caroline is gone. He suggests that we build alliances for the resistance with anyone else who hates the nasties, but he is cut short by an explosion hitting the side of the sub. They're confused as to how they're still being attacked by the nasties despite escaping. This is where Sigrun sticks a hand up like a fucking schoolgirl and states how there is obviously someone inside the sub that is transmitting their position to the nasties, which is where they look at the map for the submarine and they point out there's a room they never found a door for, so they thought it just didn't exist. Well, turns out it did exist and they find it behind some lockers. God damn, if they're this stupid, no wonder they lost the war. Obviously BJ jumps down to take care of things, but before he can go in and murder everyone, he's given a fancy new weapon. It's a weapon that can change depending on who you choose to sacrifice at the start of the game. With Fergus, you get this beautiful thing that disintegrates enemies. It's so satisfying to use. Look at these beautiful particles. With Wyatt, you get like a weird diesel explosive. It's not very good. It's a very quick mission where we just go in and mow down the nasties who have been camping in this area for God knows how long, and we destroy the machine transmitting our location to them. Now they don't know where we are, and the resistance is finally safe for now. Knowing this, they finally have time to give Caroline the send-off she deserves. Her body is put into a torpedo and shot into the depths of the ocean. Shit feels pretty hopeless at this point. BJ is a walking corpse, the leader of the resistance is dead, and all of the odds seem stacked against them. Forget about this shit though, everything gets even worse and we're set free into the submarine safe house. It's quite possibly one of, if not the worst designed places I've ever had the displeasure of running through. We're given the simple task of finding Set, and I spent a good 10 minutes just running around looking for the fucker. And once we do, we're then given another shitty task of destroying a nasty drone in the shooting range. Then we're told to look for Anya, so we spend another 10 minutes running around looking for her. These sections take place after almost every single fucking mission, and it's always the same shit. It sucks. God. Anyway, we speak to Anya, who tells us to find Fergus. Fuck my life. We find Fergus in the ammo depot, having a horrible time with his new arm.
Please help me.
It seems to have a mind of its own, and it just keeps trying to attack him. BJ kinda just brushes this off and tells him to come to the hangar for the next plan. That plan being going to Manhattan to go to the top of the Empire State Building. See, during BJ's coma in The New Order, the entirety of New York was nuked by the nasties, which was what caused America to surrender to them. The place is covered in radiation from the fallout, and the only safe area is at the top of the Empire State Building, which is where some people are hiding away from the nasties. BJ has chosen to go there because of the power armor he's wearing, allowing him to cover his face from any of the radiation. Now, this is probably my favorite mission in the entire game, and no, I'm not just biased because of the green filter slathered all over it, making it look like Fallout 3. I don't know what it is. The impact of seeing all of New York in absolute ruins is just really cool, and it hits even harder considering all of the other missions so far have been in grey, boring, industrial looking areas. The nasties are unique in this mission too, all of them sporting hazmat suits to protect themselves from the radiation. In this mission, we're also introduced to weapon upgrade kits, which is where we can upgrade certain parts of any weapon, although some of these upgrades make the guns significantly worse. I'm looking at you, nail gun SMG. Fuck you. We make our way through the ruins of New York, which is surprisingly swarming with nasties who are after the people in the Empire State Building, and we eventually get to the bottom of an elevator shaft leading to the top, which BJ climbs all the way up only to be greeted with instant hostility. The two people at the top obviously don't trust BJ, suspecting that he's a nasty soldier who managed to climb up. He tries to convince them that he's obviously not a nasty, but they refuse to believe him. And BJ, being absolutely sick of this shit, grabs one of them by the throat and hangs him over the elevator shaft. But before he can drop him, the woman has a grenade and she instantly pulls the pin out of it, telling BJ to bring the guy back in, which he does, obviously. BJ does a bit more explaining and he manages to convince them that he's not the enemy here, which is when the grenade pin flies off, causing BJ to shit himself protecting the guy. But turns out it was the dud. I mean, I don't understand this stupid scene. The two people at the top of the Empire State Building are called Grace and Super Spesh. I don't know if his parents hated him at birth or some shit. Grace sits BJ down and she talks about what New York was like during the nuking, as she was there and somehow managed to survive it. She's traumatized by what she saw. The shit she describes here is really fucked up.
Boy was blindly stumbling through the chaos. His arms were outstretched.
calling out for his mama. And the heat from the bomb had melted the skin on his arms, and they just drooped. Like he was wearing a shirt that was a couple of sizes too big. And I remember his mama. She was crawling to get to him. And the half of her body was all gone. It was just gone. What are you thinking in a moment like that?
Then she talks about testicles.
Small, little, delicate things, resting all snug and warm and cozy and comfortable in their little wrinkly wrapper of fucking skin.
Wolfenstein 2, folks. They're interrupted by Super Special warning them that the place is swarming with nasty soldiers ready to break in, which is when BJ contacts Fergus and the others to pick them up at the roof of the Empire State Building. BJ stays to give them time to escape and fights them off. My favourite track plays in this section of the mission is called Right Trigger Warning, and it sounds like this. It's awesome and it would hype me up during this shit, but the key word is would, as this shit doesn't play until you've basically killed all of the nasties and Fergus and the others are there to pick you up. I don't understand why they did this. It's a 7-minute long track too, and it's used for this. Once we get back to the submarine, Grace instantly takes the role of the leader, and Fergus isn't the biggest fan of this.
Okay, you wanna step to me, motherfucker, you wanna get shit done? Cause I'm game either way.
I'm actually quite sad that Fergus didn't replace Caroline. The silly Scottish man is far more charismatic and cool than Grace. Anyway, Grace asks if there are any nukes on the submarine, and Anya states there are nukes, but it's in an area that's been boarded off due to flooding from the nasty attack earlier. Grace then asks BJ if he knows how to swim, which means of course we have to go get them. Let's send the dying man to do it, oh yeah. We get another samey ass mission like the other one on the submarine. It's just kind of whatever, I don't really have anything of note to say about it apart from the fact, how did they not know about all of the fucking super soldiers lurking down here this whole time? They've been living on this stupid ass submarine for 5 months. Surely they would have heard them stomping around or some shit, right? We find the nuclear warhead and it's put into a fire hydrant. That will be explained why later. Instead, we get this depressing scene where BJ tells Anya that he's dying. It's a heart-wrenching scene with Anya in denial, but it's then interrupted.
Well, the toilet works.
Wolfenstein 2, folks, can't take itself seriously without cracking a silly. Did fucking Marvel and Disney write this game? Our next location is Roswell, New Mexico, where there is a nasty research base where they're supposedly experimenting on alien technology. Well, this is according to Grace, who heard it from Super Spesh, and his head isn't exactly screwed on properly. The best way to access it is by going through a secret tunnel in a diner run by Super Spesh, which is in a highly populated area, which is why the nuclear warhead was put into a fire hydrant. BJ is going in disguised as a fireman, literally hiding in plain sight as his face is plastered around everywhere on wanted signs. We get a good look at nasty occupied America here. It's messed up but also very interesting to see. We make our way into the diner and see a mother and a son ordering something. That is until a nasty officer walks in, which is where they instantly run out. We then get an incredibly tense scene where this nasty officer talks to us about how we look kinda familiar, but he just can't quite put his finger on it. While in the background, all we see are wanted posters with BJ's face plastered on them. And just before the nasty officer finds out that it's actually him, he's shot in the face by Super Spesh and they close down the diner instantly. We then get this really boring scene where Super Spesh mumbles about space aliens and conspiracies, and he refers to the nasty research base we're about to nuke as Area 52. I wanted to skip this cutscene originally, but I didn't, thinking there might be something important for the story to record for this video. But no, it's just conspiracy mumbo jumbo. He does give BJ this little thing, which I do think serves some importance in Youngblood, but we'll get to that another time. Super Spesh shows us the secret tunnel leading to the base and we go down it, mowing down nasties who get in our way. Obviously though, the base is quite a few miles away in the middle of nowhere, so we have to board a train to get there, which is where I got locked in that loop of being bitten by the dog and dying instantly after because BJ just fucking melts in this game despite being decked out in power armor. Let's not forget the health being locked max at 50. Yippee! We plant the nuke and leave the base, sneaking up on an unsuspecting nasty soldier who's just minding his own business watching rockets launch. Probably in awe and wonder, wishing he could be the one going to space, just like he dreamed of when he was a kid. Well, those dreams are gone because BJ puts a hatchet around his throat and takes his keys and gun, and then spares him? I mean, alright. BJ hops on a vehicle straight out of that one South Park episode, except without jeez, I can't say this with a straight face. Give me a second. Except without the phallic risk of a prolapse. And once he's far enough, he triggers the nuke. On his way back to the others, he passes a sign saying he's near Houston, Texas, his home where he grew up. BJ is at the lowest point of his life currently, on the verge of death, so he decides to turn around and make a quick detour to his childhood home. This is probably my favourite part of the game in terms of story. There aren't any shitty out of place jokes about poo, it's just serious scenes, expanding on BJ's character. The thing is though, these scenes are all entirely optional. When you arrive at the house, you get multiple objective markers and only one of them is the main objective. The others are side objectives where you go to certain areas around the house, causing a flashback to when BJ was a child. They're very heartwarming scenes, and there's even one that humanizes the dad. You know, the abusive racist. It's a flashback where BJ has been having nightmares and his dad wants to do something about it. So he hands him a BB gun and he picks up his shotgun and he takes him down to the basement to pretend that they're gonna go down to hunt the monsters. But there aren't any, comforting BJ. He even lets him sleep with the gun, which is very American. BJ didn't just come to reminisce at the house though, he came for the ring that his mother showed him at the start of the game. But as he gets it, he realizes he's not alone.
Place is gone to shit.
His dad has been lurking in the shadows waiting for him. They talk for a bit, a very hostile conversation about how he was an abusive piece of shit, but his dad just blames all of it on him. He even blames him for breaking his mother's heart for running off to the army as soon as he came of age. Which is when BJ asks where she even is anyway. He then breaks the news that they took her to a concentration camp. She was a Jewish woman and it's implied BJ's dad ratted her out to the nasties after they lost the war. He even says how things have gotten better because of them. Then we get to why BJ's dad was waiting for him. He was here to kill him. He knows he's seen as a terrorist to the nasties and he wants to get in their good books even more by killing his own son. Which is when we get this amazing scene.
Was it time I was scared of you? Was it time I'd have pissed myself, had a gun pointed at my head? You know what I feel right now? Not a goddamn thing. Who'd you call?
Someone was listening this entire time. He came prepared in case he was killed by BJ. Before he can find out who he called, the house shakes and it's lifted off the ground by the airship from before, and we hear a familiar voice over a speaker. It's Frau Engel, and she's here to finish us off for good. We're basically at our wit's end here. All we can do is try and get the airship's clamps off the ruins of the house and fight as much as we can. And we do actually succeed in doing so, but we must have forgotten that the house was suspended in the sky.
Why did I come here? I should have run home. To you, Anya.
BJ is right where they want him, trapped underneath a giant slab of wood, unable to move. They pry his body armor off of him, so he's unable to have any chance of fighting back against them. One of the soldiers reaches into his pockets and finds his mother's ring. He hands it to Frau Engel instantly. She opens it up and takes the ring out, proceeding to throw the box at BJ on the ground. She holds the ring out, mocking BJ, pretending that it's an engagement ring for her. She goes up to BJ with the ring and taunts him, knowing he can't do shit about it. After that, she's handed a huge syringe, probably filled with elephant tranquilizer, because that's the only shit strong enough to knock BJ out. BJ wakes up at some sort of nasty conference being broadcasted live on TV. They don't want to execute BJ straight away. They want to milk the fact they've finally captured him to show how powerful they are and make any form of resistance even more hopeless than they already are. Our face is then covered again, and it transitions to the inside of some sort of holding cell, which is where we see a familiar face. Although it's not one we really want to be seeing right now. It's fucking super special, god damn it. He's acting as our lawyer, wanting to talk to us privately about the court case case for our murders and terrorism, which we have no hope of winning anyway, and Super Special knows this, which is why he has a plan to get us out of here. He says that everyone is waiting in a car in the parking lot, and he's gonna pretend like we got free and attacked him, luring a guard in here and then killing him. This goes about as well as you suspect. Frau Engel knew exactly what was going on, and when she spots BJ behind the door, she does what she usually does and torments him. This time by placing her golden Luger into his mouth, making him taste the gunpowder that just killed his friend. I mean, I wouldn't call Super Special friend, but you know. We fade out and back into a courtroom where BJ gets a fair trial. I mean, sure, the nasties have taken over, but laws are still a thing.
Death, Mr. Blazkowicz!
Ah, okay. Fuck this shit, man. We mow down the courtroom and every nasty soldier who dares to even try and stop us. And just as soon as the coast is clear, it was just a dream, because of course it was. Wolfenstein 2, folks. Amazing writing that you'd get into trouble for in year 7 for your creative writing story. Everything has led up to this. BJ's execution. An execution that is broadcasted to billions across the world. Performed by Frau Engel herself. She taunts us one last time before she finishes us off. With every swing, our vision fades more and more until there is nothing but darkness. Frau Engel lifts up BJ's head and holds it up for everyone to see. Billy Joseph Blazkowicz, the so-called terrorist Terror Billy, has finally been stopped. The crowd of nasty soldiers cheer as she drops his severed head into a pit of fire. Then all that's left is darkness. But wait, the game isn't finished yet. We're only just over halfway through. How can you even come back from this? Well, the only way you can carry on from this is pass the torch to another character like, say, Fergus or some shit. Or jump the nasty General Shark. Machine Games decided to do the latter, but they jumped over the shark into orbit. The Resistance grabbed BJ's severed head and put it into a little jar. The jar keeps BJ alive somehow, and Set found a body for him too. An experimental nasty super soldier body. Not only that, but he's found a bunch of nasty tech that's a bit broken, but he has just enough parts to fix one. The first one is the Constrictor harness. This allows you to fit into tight areas, enhancing stealth. The second one is the Ramshackles, the best one. It allows you to run into broken walls, completely knocking them down. You can also do it to enemies. The last one is the Stilts. Why the fuck would you choose these ones? For this playthrough, I chose the Ramshackles for obvious reasons. After all of this, BJ wakes up in his new body, and he feels great. Not only does he have a new body, but he gets a new jacket too. Everything is looking up, our health isn't capped at 50 anymore either. Is this where the game gets better? No, it's not. It's actually where it gets worse. See, the game was balanced around you having 50 health. Well, I say balanced, you died incredibly quickly. So the way they rebalance it around having 100 health is by making the enemies do even more damage. You die faster with 100 health. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Not only that, but the levels get longer here, like way longer, and they just aren't fun. You'll have gotten burnt out by the gameplay at this point. The next objective for the Resistance is to go back to Manhattan to get some knick-knack device to get to the proper next mission. That's right, our first mission with this new body and abilities is a filler mission in a previous level. A level where you don't even spend it outside in the cool area. You go down into a grey, boring ass looking bunker. You know, just like all of the other fucking grey, boring ass areas from before. The actual next objective is to get to New Orleans, Louisiana, as there's another Resistance hiding out there fighting for their lives against the nasties, run by a fella named Horton. Now, New Orleans, Louisiana is another visually stunning level. This would have been a far better introduction for the new abilities, but hey, what can you do? We fight our way through, as the place is obviously riddled with nasties looking for this Resistance group, and eventually we find them holding out. They have a bit of a squabble over a few drinks, and BJ eventually convinces them to join, which is when they let us know that they just randomly have a fucking Panzerhund, and we ride that shit back out there to safety, giving them a chance to get to the submarine. This section is awesome. I gotta give the game credit here. It's really satisfying, especially making us do it at night, letting the flames light up at everything around us. I love it. It doesn't last long at all though, because Of course it doesn't. We can't have nice things in Wolfenstein 2. We make our way back through to the submarine ourselves, but we see that the airship from before is holding onto it, just like it did at the start. But BJ shoots a literal nuke at it because I think he's just done with Frau Engel's shit at this point. The airship has been kind of a huge piece of shit this entire time. So the next objective is to take over the airship for the resistance, as it's causing unnecessary road bumps in building it up. But there's no way to access the ship without knowing a passcode for the automated security system referred to as Odin. But ever since the nuking in New Mexico, the Nasties have panicked, moving every single piece of information and important shit to a base on Venus. Yep, you heard me right, an entirely different planet. There seems to be absolutely no way to get to Venus. Well, that is until Anya spots on the TV that they're hiring actors to play Terror Billy in an upcoming film, thinking that BJ is still dead. Auditions are taking place on Venus, and luckily for them, one of the actors looks a lot like BJ, except with a mustache. So Anya and BJ kidnap the guy and steal his clothes and mustache.
How I look?
Like a walrus.
On Venus, BJ is taken straight to the auditioning room, which is when the man himself comes in to see who's auditioning. Hitler is depicted as this decrepit, crazy old man on a power trip. He pisses and throws up everywhere on the floor, and he just doesn't care about anyone else. He shoots the first person who talks to him because he referred to him as Mr. Hitler. Oh, and he says this.
I'm from Arizona.
What a crime. After this though, there is a thick layer of tension because one wrong slip and you're dead. Especially if you get your lines wrong, which you were told to memorize last second, so you wrote them down on your hand. But the sweat from the tension has rubbed out some of the words, so you gotta guess. Some of these options for the wrong dialogue is so goofy though, and they fucking animated a cutscene for every single one.
I will cake and butter you.
After the line reading, the next part is acting out a scene where we have to take out a nasty soldier as Terror Billy. The first person fucks up and is hit in the face by the soldier, causing him to bleed. His performance was so shit, Hitler just shoots him a bunch in the back. After him, it's our turn, which is where BJ kinda breaks character a bit by just being himself. He murders the nasty soldier and throws his gun against the glass and says this.
Is that what you wanted? Is that what you had in mind? You Nazi asshole. Cause that's all you're getting.
Wunderbar, wunderbar. Haben Sie das gesehen, Helene? Wie geboren für die Rolle. Wird mein Platz gewinnen.
Thankfully, no suspicion arose and he got the role playing, himself. His luggage is taken into a room and the nasty soldier escorting him offers to unpack his stuff, which is when he finds a weapon in his suitcase. I don't know why BJ takes his mustache off here, he's just blowing his cover entirely. With such an amazing start, you'd think this mission is absolutely awesome, right? Well, look at the game we're playing. Venus is easily one of, if not the worst mission. It's so fucking annoying, and it just goes on and on and on, it doesn't end. There's a gimmick on it too, where you have to put on a spacesuit to walk along the surface of Venus, but because Venus is so hot, the suit needs constant cooling, so you have to deal with hit-scanning enemies absolutely everywhere, while also managing the cooling on your suit. It's frustrating and it isn't fun in the slightest. It's even more baffling considering the fact they did the exact same thing here with the moon in The New Order, and that mission was absolutely excellent. What happened here? Anyway, BJ gets the password for the Odin security system and the password is Valhalla. Valhalla. I mean, why the fuck not? It is called the Odin security system after all. We had to fucking travel to an entirely different planet for a password that we could have easily guessed. A password that wouldn't even be accepted on a social media site anymore. They could have at least added some numbers and maybe a plus on the end or some shit, but no, it's just Valhalla. How did they win the war again? The Nasties in The Old Blood and The New Order were intimidating as fuck with their incredibly advanced technology and just upper hand in everything due to being disgusting monsters. But in this game, they're just fucking goofy. I take back what I said about the Hitler scene now. He's probably the one who set the password because he played fucking God of War Ragnarok or some shit. I'd rather play that shit than this game right now. God. We make it back to the submarine, then board the airship, deactivating the defense systems. And we make our way to the top to take control of it while killing as many nasties as we can along the way. Which is where we're introduced to a new enemy, these big robot fellas, which are about as fun to fight as using a cheese grater on your eyelids. After them, you take control of the ship and learn that Frau Engel is currently on a talk show, which is where BJ swoops in and smacks her in the face with his hatchet live on TV. Then everyone there talks to the camera to tell everyone to raise a fist against the nasties and fight back, creating a huge uprising against them, which we don't see. Then the game ends. I deliberately wanted to end this quickly and in an underwhelming, brushed over way, because that's exactly how the game does it. I remember even when I first played this, when I enjoyed it, I was so confused when the credits started rolling. The final mission did not feel like a final mission, and the way he kills Frau Engel after years of torment is done in such an underwhelming way. I mean, one benefit is the fact that it ends quicker, meaning I don't have to play any more of it. That's Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus, folks. Thank you so much for watching my video, especially if you've made it this far into it. I also want to thank you all so much for the support that was given on my compilation video I made for The New Order and The Old Blood. The fact that over 100,000 people have seen me gush about those two games is insane to me. I hope this video was worth the wait, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from with my complaints on The New Colossus. But if you disagree and love the game, more power to you. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Despite my mixed thoughts on it, it didn't put me off the Wolfenstein series whatsoever. I am so excited for the possibility of a Wolfenstein 3. Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus was a huge disappointment. It was supposed to be this huge follow-up to the amazing Wolfenstein The New Order and the severely underrated The Old Blood. Yet it just failed in almost every single department compared to those games. Apart from the gunplay, it was pretty nice in The New Colossus. That's probably the only thing I can really give it. Needless to say, the game was quite mixed on release. Critics loved it, but then again, it's a complete gamble whether or not the game actually deserves the score it gets. IGN gave Prey 2017 a 4 out of 10, I just want to remind you all. The reception for The New Colossus on the player's side, on the other hand, well, it was more on the negative side. Obviously, there were those people out there that absolutely adored the game, which is completely fair. Don't let anyone take away anything from the things you enjoy, especially YouTubers like me, because, like, goddamn, I really didn't like the game. There were moments within it where there was this spark of greatness, something that could have put it above every other Wolfenstein game ever made. But then it would just completely blunder it and flush it all down the toilet with one fucking scene.
Well, the toilet works.
A few months after the release of The New Colossus, Bethesda held a conference at E3 2018. They showed us all this extremely stylish trailer, and it was revealed within it that we'll be playing as BJ's twin daughters in this next Wolfenstein game. At the time, I don't recall anyone being excited for it whatsoever. Then again, it was at the same conference as Doom Eternal. Personally, I was pretty excited for it. It was more Wolfenstein, what can I say? Then after a few months, we got some more information on the game. Supposedly, it was entirely co-op, with both of the twins being playable, and Arcane, the fellas behind Dishonored and Prey, were helping with the level design, making it a bit more open with a variety of different paths you can take in levels. It was pretty out of the ordinary for a Wolfenstein game for sure, but it sounded insanely promising in my opinion, especially considering the fact it was going to be a budget side game, not a mainline one, which is why they were taking risks and experimenting. Then the game came out. Now, I don't think people liked it very much, which confused me quite a lot at the time because I personally did kind of enjoy it. I'm sorry. On release, I played through the entire game with my good friend Mr. Pungyoung, a fella who also disliked The New Colossus, and we both had a pretty good time for our entire playthrough. Here are some silly screenshots of glitches of our time together. I only had 2 screenshots, that's all I can give you. Me and him played Youngblood at launch, which was 5 years ago now, and since I've been talking about the Wolfenstein reboots on my channel and revisiting those games, I think now's the time to go into Youngblood with a fresh new mindset and see if I still enjoy it, or if I'll join everyone else in despising the game. I fucking hate this game now. I couldn't even finish it again for this video. I don't even know how I never actually saw how bad this shit is. I'm having a literal crisis right now. Everything I know is wrong and fake and isn't real. Okay, I've calmed down now after taking my indiscreet shot of an unknown fluid. So let's talk about Wolfenstein Youngblood and why this is the game that basically killed off the Wolfenstein reboot. I'm not exaggerating when I say they fuck up almost every single aspect of this game with some of the most baffling design choices. They even somehow made the gunplay bad, which is crazy because I mean it's literally the exact same gunplay from the new Colossus, which was the best part of that game. Well, here's the thing, the new Colossus was a linear first-person shooter. Youngblood is a weird-ass RPG hybrid with enemy levels and health bars. You know a game is completely fucked if they add health bars to an established IP for no fucking reason whatsoever. With the level system too, you end up having the general shit that brings down RPGs with guns. Spongy enemies. And Wolfenstein Youngblood, oh boy, some of these enemies are not fun to fight in the slightest because of it. Enemies that would go down fairly quickly in the original games now take significantly longer to kill because they're like 2 levels above you or some shit. I mean, it's accurate, that's how guns worked during the actual war. It's how the Nasties won because Hitler's Luger was 5 levels higher than the Hiroshima nuke. There's no other explanation. Somehow, it gets even fucking worse because the enemy's levels scale with you. So all of those perks and health and power upgrades you've been getting, in the end, are absolutely fucking useless because no matter what, the enemies will always take the exact same amount of time to kill because they're always slightly higher level than you. Oh, but it doesn't work the other way around because there are some enemies that are just significantly higher level than you, even though it's just more of the same shit you've already been fighting, so it just doesn't really make any sense. Now, the key to a successful RPG is giving you the sense that you're becoming stronger, overcoming shit that used to be super hard and getting the satisfaction of coming back to that place that was giving you a hard time to begin with and fucking everything up because you're a much higher level. With level scaling, you don't get this effect, and it ultimately makes the RPG elements completely pointless. In fact, why the fuck is this even an RPG to begin with? Why are there skill trees? Why are there levels? This is a Wolfenstein game, not fucking Skyrim. Todd, what are you doing at Machine Games? Stop trying to make Skyrim again. I guess you could argue that you're supposed to be a bit weaker in Youngblood because you aren't playing as BJ, who is probably the most powerful being in that universe. No, you're playing as BJ's twin daughters who are just awful. I have no other way to describe them, they're just fucking awful. I'm not sure how I managed to tolerate them before when I did kinda like the game, but these two twats are the literal walking definitions of the tonal issues I had with the new Colossus. They took the goofy, unfunny, Marvel-inspired crap from that game and put it into 2 characters that just fully embrace that shit. Even BJ regrets having them. In the first cutscene, he just has this look of remorse on his face whenever he's around them, and I really don't blame him. I'd be ashamed too. The scene where they're about to take their first kill is the perfect example of this tone. See, it actually kinda starts decently with Sophie, the blonde one, trying to aim a pistol at the nasty down below, looking away from the gun because I mean it's her first time killing someone. I actually kinda like the little exchange between them about the anxiety and fear they're both feeling during this, trying to figure out some sort of plan.
You're so not ready for this. You'll miss the shot. Shut up, I am ready.
We should try to get up close. Climb down there, I sneak up from the left, you sneak up from the right. Corner him and kill him.
Man, are you crying?
I'm not fucking crying, a little nauseous is all.
You could have flaked out on me?
Hell no.
Let's go then, little Miss Blazkowicz.
Then the dark-haired one, Jess, impales the guy and Sophie shoots the fucker's head off and they both start celebrating for some reason. Then they drink juice boxes by the dead body. I don't understand. Their characters just don't make sense. They're the daughters of these two. It makes no sense. Did Anya cheat on BJ with some weird ass TikTok watching cretin or some shit? Oh, this game is killing me. Throughout the entire game, they're constantly insufferable. They don't have any character arcs or anything. It's just constant, annoying, hyperactive dog shit. You constantly have to listen to them talking all the time during gameplay too, repeating the same voice lines over and over again. Luckily, they get drowned out by the hype-ass music though, right? Wolfenstein games have always been known for their awesome OSTs by Mick Gordon. What do you mean Mick Gordon didn't compose for this game? What do you mean there's barely a soundtrack? Thankfully, they kept the trend of making nasty parodies of existing songs and made up bands. The new Colossus had Changeover Day, which was a bop. I wonder what Youngblood has. Okay, turn this shit off, fucking hell. Since I didn't finish Youngblood, I won't be doing a story analysis for it, which is probably why you're wondering why this video is nowhere near as long as my other Wolfenstein videos. Maybe though I can bring this all back around because there's one more game in the Reboot series I need to talk about. During the same E3 conference, they decided to announce a brand new VR game. See, before this, Bethesda had dipped their greasy toes into the VR genre, releasing a whopping 3 games. Skyrim VR, which I haven't played, Fallout 4 VR, which doesn't open for me properly, and Doom VFR, which also doesn't open for me properly. So they have a good track record with their VR games. And the obvious next step would be to try making a VR game in the Wolfenstein universe. And that's exactly what they did with Wolfenstein Cyberpilot, which seemed awesome, and guess what? It actually opens for me. I can actually play the game. It's the only Bethesda VR game to work on my PC, so that's at least something. Anyway, do you all remember that Panzerhund section from Wolfenstein 2, which was insanely awesome? Well, imagine that shit in VR. This is gonna be sick. It's nowhere near as fun as I thought, and I don't want to play any more of it. It is just a glorified vehicle section made into a game. Half-Life Alyx came out like a year after this. The entire time you're just sat on your fat ass, moving your noodle arms, breaking your bones every 2 seconds. You repair nasty robots with significantly less depth as the Five Nights at Freddy's repair minigames. I'm not even joking. Then you control the robot you repaired and hacked and kill a few nasties in a level. It just isn't very fun. Yeah, I don't want to play any more of it. There's only so many times I can keep saying these 2 games suck. After a while, just being constantly negative is incredibly draining and honestly downright demoralizing. I'm sorry for getting super real with you all right now, but I honestly hate that this series of Wolfenstein videos is ending on such a negative note. The original script for this video was titled Wolfenstein Youngblood Isn't As Bad As You Think, because I remembered enjoying the game, and I was hoping nothing would have changed, hoping to end it on a positive note, but no. Listen, again, I really am thankful for all of your support. I wasn't even planning on making this into a series talking about all the games. My original intention was to just make my first ever big video on The New Order because that game meant a lot to me. The same goes for The Old Blood. But like I said, as much as I wish I could end these videos on the Wolfenstein Reboot games in a positive way, I just can't. Trust me, I tried. I even played Cyberpilot as a slight hope that I would enjoy it to make at least one part of this video somewhat positive. But that game was so mind-numbingly gimmicky and boring that I didn't even make it past the second tutorial. Wolfenstein Youngblood was probably the nail in the coffin for the Reboot series. And honestly, me just shitting all over the game would just be beating a dead horse at this point. I want Machine Games to succeed, and it seems like they've just moved on with their next project, which is that huge Indiana Jones game. It looks pretty good, you know, I'm pretty hopeful for that. But hope is a very powerful emotion, and deep down there is a bit of that hope that thinks after the Indiana Jones game, there could be a Wolfenstein 3, and it will be just as good as The New Order and The Old Blood, and I'll be able to end this journey positively. Thank you all so much for sticking around and supporting me rambling about a series of games where you just run around killing nasties. I really hope I'll be able to see you all in the next one.